Wait, before we start, be sure to subscribe. And also some clarification. So for those of you who are new to the channel or don't know what Personathon is, it's essentially a mix between our mainline Persona reviews and a completely original story around it. This has been a project in production for over 2 years now, and with enough time, I decided to finally make this giant compilation, putting the entire series together. I really hope you all enjoy this and stick around, cause this is a project I never thought I'd be able to finish. I have nothing but respect for the people who are able to make this a reality. With that said, enjoy the series.
Are we live? Perfect. Welcome to 99 News. Glad to see you all here this evening. Recently, Mint Corporation has just announced what might be one of their most ambitious productions yet. As some of you have noticed, it and their new studio, Mintjoy Pictures, has received a massive amount of support during these past few months. Rumors say that Pepper Corporations, its longtime competitor, is also coming up with something very special to go up against them. Though nothing's confirmed as of now, will this mean the war between our economic giants is yet to be over? Will these new CEOs be even more competitive than what we had in previous years? Only time will tell. This is Speed from 99 News, where we report 99% of the
Minty, you truly stood the test of time, I suppose. All thanks to that little sweetheart of yours. But don't think it's over. We'll just settle things like we always have. Just like I want them to be.
Just give me a few more minutes. What time is it anyway? I'm sorry for coming late, sir. It wasn't my fault, I promise. Where did he go?
I thought I told you your shift starts at 8. Is everything okay?
Sir? Yeah, thanks for asking. But where were you?
Me? Oh, right. I was just making preparations for the next production. Come check it out. I want to show you. Just close your eyes though, okay?
Okay then.
No peeking.
I'm not.
Just give me a sec. Grab this. Alright, you can see now.
Personathon?
What do you think? So you see, I've always wanted to make a larger scale production, so what better way to do it than to review every mainline Persona game? I made us some cool outfits, props, and ooh, I even got us someone to compose music for us.
You're kidding, right?
Is something wrong?
No, it's just that this already sounds pretty ambitious. Persona games are stupidly long, you know?
Oh please, Miss Aoi, you'll be fine. You've always done so well in our company's records. On top of that, you really like these games, don't you? So this will be a cakewalk for you.
Sir. Alright, I'll do it.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Aoi. You'll see that this series will be awesome.
It's nothing, sir, really. But please don't hug so tight.
Oh, right. Sorry about that. By the way, I still need to get one more game in order to have everything ready. Why don't we go to the mall and get it?
Of course.
It really seems like they're stepping up their game here. Like, look at this. They bought up 3 production companies. 3! Like, why do you need so many? What do you think you're doing?
You said something?
Aw, it's so nice to see you two.
Oh, not her again.
Is everything alright? Did you miss me?
Alright, what do you want, Akane? Can't you see that we're a little busy here? Especially after, you know.
I was trying to help, you know. Don't you ever want our companies to stop being at a loss?
Okay, but how is suing gonna help? Jeez, you're sometimes in another world at this point.
Being at a loss?
Oh, how cute. I wonder if he's told you about our history.
Don't bring her into this. Just, what did you want?
Well, I kinda felt bad for how much damage I left on you two, so I thought I'd make it up. I want to invest $10 million to your company to help with your productions. However, I'll only accept if I can make a legal investigation. In case we have to see each other in court again.
You really think I'll allow an investment from you? No way. With Miss Aoi here, this project will bring us back to our glory days, and soon you'll be the one who's getting bought out.
Is that so?
Come on, Miss Aoi. We have better things to do.
Very well. If you change your mind, however, just call me.
Sorry for dragging you into that mess. Why don't we start recording? I'll get your outfit real quick.
Sure, but can I ask you something, sir?
Oh yeah, what's up?
I'm just wondering, what did she mean by you two having a history?
Follow me.
Whoa, what is this place?
You see, Miss Aoi, Akane wasn't just our former host. Our families have history. It all started off as noble competition, but then it just evolved into something much greater. We developed cars, computers, you name it. We put our spot in almost every industry. That's kinda why we're called the capitalist empires.
Wow. Then what caused the company to be, go bankrupt? It couldn't have just been that lawsuit, right?
You see him? That's my dad. He was the company's CEO before me. Ever since he passed away though, a lot has happened. To say that managing this place was overwhelming would be an understatement. There was a lot of fraud, a lot of corruption, a lot of people didn't listen to me, so I put matters into my own hands. I bought out the shares, made us a private company, and hired you and Akane to hopefully make this a better place. If you can tell, however, Akane didn't have the same vision I had for this place. This was never part of the deal. You said you would only help until we become profitable.
Yes, that was the intention. However, I can't just buy up a brand without some form of return, you know.
You know what? The deal's over then. I'd rather close the place than continue with someone like you.
Oh, did you forget we have legal copies? In any case, so be it.
Minty. Then, if I could do anything, it would be to help both of us succeed. So please believe me when I say I won't disappoint you, sir.
That's what I'd like to hear. Together, we'll show Akane who really knows how to host. Now then, are you ready for our next production?
More than ever. Let me tell you a little story. We were in our office watching the Game Awards. I was mostly just excited about the release of Smash as I saw this trailer which had, well, a ton of things going for it. A beautiful style, a sense of suspense. What more could you ask for? And let me tell you, this is what started it all. To say that this made me a Persona fan would be a massive understatement. I don't know what it was, but once I found out about this franchise, I immediately fell in love with it. I have so many things I want to say about the Persona series, yet I feel like it has been discussed to death. That's honestly the main reason why I never reviewed or talked about Persona deeply on a production. At least with something like Soul Hackers 2, there was a reason and new perspective to make it. Just making a standard production didn't feel like I was serving justice to the franchise. If I'm going to do this, I want to go all out. Fortunately, I have found a solution, and we really hope you guys enjoy it. This is Bunny, and you're watching Personathon. Wait, sir, we're live? Oh, I mean, I forgot to mention this, but as a small experiment, we're recording this production live for the first time. But as I was saying, this is easily going to be one of our most ambitious productions yet. To celebrate our journey with all of you, I want to make a little retrospective of every mainline Persona game. However, I want my focus to be on three main things: the development history, my personal experience with it, and the impact. This would be a fun way to focus on more of the external factors of the series rather than just the games themselves. Persona as a series has grown a lot for the amount of time it's been around, and a lot of things have happened since its debut.
And for the first time in the company's history, we're doing a duo review, meaning we'll be hosting together.
First time? Wow. Nevertheless, what a better way to start off today than with Persona 1. Now, this is probably one of the most interesting entries in the series. Many say it's like the odd one out of the Persona franchise, but I never truly understood why. So there has to be something wrong. Why don't we take a closer look then? And as always, be sure to press that red button for future productions from us. This is our review on Persona 1.
Alright, let's start with the beginning. Atlus was a developer that created and distributed games for consoles like the NES and SNES. One of their more popular franchises being Shin Megami Tensei, which was initially made for a Japanese audience, later released in the West. This series became incredibly successful and spawned countless spin-offs and sub-series after SNT 2's release. One of those being Shin Megami Tensei If. SNT If had a pretty unique take for the series, focusing more on the troubles of young adults in a Japanese high school setting, rather than your typical fighting demons with different ideologies to save the world. This idea came from the series creator Koji Okada and Kazuma Kanero, stating that almost everyone experiences their life as a student, and this can be something they can relate to. And that is a really good point actually. The way a lot of the characters in the series are portrayed make it very easy to connect and relate with. To no one's surprise, the reception regarding SNTF was large enough to convince Atlus to fully create a sub-series around this style, though there's been a few changes. One of those being an underlying focus on psychology and the human mind and soul. This can be seen in each game one way or another and has become a staple in the franchise. When developing this title, the main direction was to make it as close as traditional Mega 10, but making it also accessible to newcomers for the series. The game's development even went as far as to nearly put SNT Nocturne's release to a halt. Wow, they must have had a lot of faith in this one. But soon after, the game as we know now as Revelations Persona was released on September 20th, 1996. Before we get into the story, I want to mention one more thing: the PSP release and localization. You see, Persona was made during a time where Japanese-centric games were a bit more of a niche and relatively new to American audiences. For this reason, the PS1 Western release has gone through several changes to be more appealing to the West.
Now, what were these alterations, you ask? Well, to name a few, they changed all of the characters, location names, a ton of Persona and Demon Shadow names, protagonist's hairstyle, ethnic origins, some dialogue, and the most infamous, removing an entire section of the game. The only one of these changes I truly do have a problem with is the removal of the Snow Queen quest. Apparently, the reason it was never included was because they had a deadline to get it out for the end of the year, and on top of that it had major glitches. Luckily, we did eventually get a PSP release in 2009 for Japan and North America in the title of Shin Megami Tensei Persona. This port was designed to be more true to the original release of the title. They balanced a few things, used the original Persona, shadow, character, and location names, brought back the Snow Queen quest, added back most of its dialogue, new and redone anime cutscenes, new UI, a huge amount of quality of life changes, and so many more, to the point that we could make an entire production about it on its own. The PSP version is going to be the game I'm going to take most of my thoughts and review from, since, in my opinion, it's the most definitive way to play this title. Anyway, that's enough on the overall summary of its history. Let's start with the story. Minty?
It's Captain?
Right. Why don't you explain the story?
Certainly. Alright, so the story takes place in Mikage-cho. You, an unnamed protagonist, and your classmates play a game called the Persona game. However, by playing this, a massive turn of events happen. Soon after, we meet Philemon, a being that lives inside the consciousness and unconsciousness of a human being, and is also our guide throughout this journey. He also gives us the ability to summon a persona, a power that helps us control one's self-reflection and comments how we're gonna need it for what's to come. After all that, the group decides to check on one of their friends, Maki Sonomura, who was at the hospital due to an illness. It's up to this point where we start to see strange activity going on in the city. Maki's room is gone all of a sudden, and monsters, otherwise known as shadows and demons, are attacking, and the only way to take them down is through the power of Persona. As we progress more through the story, thanks to a help of Setsuko Sonomura, also known as Maki's mom, we start to fit all the pieces together and realize that reality has been split into two. One is basically the same where the main cast lives, but the other is a world that was supposedly made by Takesha Kandori, the president of Sebek's Mikage-cho branch. You see, Kandori has been using a machine that Maki's mom has been developing called the Diva system to warp reality to his own will. So it's up to us now to take him down using the power of our personas. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, it's around these previous events where we do eventually meet up with Maki, who is surprisingly fine, kind of. She does have a few issues remembering what happened, but we don't really think too hard about it. Until we get to the other part of the story, which is more centered around Maki as a character. Maki is a girl who has been sick for most of her life, and it has been stated in the beginning that she's been hospitalized for over a year. This gave her severe damage to her mental health, but always tries to escape that by going to her so-called ideal world. That's who this Maki is. Kandori didn't just want to create a new world with a diva system. It created one that was made up of Maki's dreams, while also kidnapping the real one and splitting her into 3 different beings. The ideal Maki, who helps us throughout the journey, and help 2 younger versions of her, Mai and Aki, representing the innocent and guilty sides of her respectively. With all this together, it is up to you, your classmates, the ideal Maki, and soon Mai, to stop Kandori from hurting the real Maki and eventually ending humanity, but we don't talk about that. So we just defeated Kandori and the game is over, right? Huh. What did you think this was? A movie? No, it can't end like this. This is Persona we're talking about. Here's something that you need to keep in mind about these games. They like to give a lot of build up to this antagonist and make a grand finale for it, only to completely take that off the rails and have you fight a god. Whether this is a good thing or not, completely up to you. Anyways, after defeating Kandori, we eventually told to defeat the true cause of all this, Pandora, a god and part of Maki's heart that wants to use the diva system to kill and destroy everything. So it is up to you now and your friends to finally defeat her and bring things back to normal. Thankfully, after hours upon hours of pure grinding, we defeat her. The world is returning to its original state. Your friends and everyone are going back to their respective worlds. And most importantly, Maki, she has become the one who she wanted to be and is able to hang out with her friends now, living her own and ideal self. Oh geez, this went on longer than I expected, and this is just one half of what the game has to offer. Yes, I kid you not, there's 2 different storylines. The one I just explained is called the Sebek route, the other is the Snow Queen quest. To keep things short, I'll keep most of my opinions from the Sebek route. Now then, what are my thoughts? I love the story. It's weird, I wasn't expecting it to be this good, but it's genuinely like really heartwarming. It has a certain tone going on with being very scary, lonely, and also eerie in general. Yet, it's really charming. Other than your classmates, there's not really a lot of people around Mikage-cho. That, combined with the underlying themes of this game, it brings in quite a unique experience. It explores concepts like coming to senses about yourself and your morals. It's fine if you're not the ideal version you dream about. Nobody's perfect after all. Maki is the perfect representation for this and just an overall really good character. Seeing her overcome these obstacles, having the chance to be with her friends again, and seeing the world where she is now happier than ever is absolutely beautiful. As for the rest of the cast, they're alright I guess. My only real issue here is that they don't get as much development compared to Maki. Don't get me wrong, there's still some interesting characters like Nanjo. It's just one of those cases that there could have been more, you know. And as for Kandori as a villain, well, he's alright. He mostly boils down to Big Bad CEO number 41, with a twist that he becomes a god, but still just a little bit generic for me. I will admit though, the fact that he's also a Persona user and it gets revealed during his boss fight, that's pretty cool. And I think that's about it for the story. Hey Bunny, you're up now.
Gameplay. Side note, I do expect most people watching to have played at least one entry of the Persona series. This is so I don't have to explain the basic mechanics in the upcoming episodes. I'll go over them here so we understand the foundation. Persona 1 overall plays very similar to many JRPGs, especially ones made by Atlus at the time. You can run around, talk to characters, check out different locations, and most importantly, fight enemies to level up. There's 3 main ways to locate the maps, those being first-person view for dungeon crawling, third-person in battles, and this overhead view when traveling through a city. Fighting enemies is easily where the game stands out the most. Battles play out in turns, but you have this grid-like system. Here you can do your basic attack, use a gun, analyze for any weaknesses, and even change the order of party members. What's new here is being able to utilize your persona. Personas essentially give you a wider range of skills to use, ranging from physical attacks that use up your HP to magic spells that require SP. You'll mostly be trying to figure out the weakness of a certain enemy to try and abuse it. Despite being enemies, if you try contacting them, there's a chance that they can become part of your persona. All you need to do is talk to them in a way their personality likes. If you get it right, they become a part of your team. Scaring them will only end the battle, making them eager can give you an item, and angry will make them fight back. There is room for error though, so say you get them a bit scared but happen to make them fully happy. By doing this, they'll still decide to be on your team. This is honestly one of my favorite mechanics in the game. Just seeing what kind of personalities these shadows or demons have is really charming, and the amount of things you can do to them is insane. You can taunt, flirt, speak in some attitude, all kinds of stuff really. But if you want to go the extra step and make these personas stronger, that's where you get to meet Igor. Oh wow, so he's been kind of a staple this whole time. So here you can essentially do your usual fusing of 2 or more personas to make them stronger and choose what skills to give them. Or you could use tarot cards, which you can get from talking to the demons and get a specific persona. This is incredibly crucial as you progress the game. You're able to carry quite a few in this game too. All your party members can use more than one persona. This is pretty neat, though it does make setting up a team really tedious. Think about it. Everyone can use personas, which is great, but at the same time you have to properly sort out and make a powerful one every now and then, or else they'll be too weak for later dungeons. But maybe that's just me. In terms of how this grid layout works, characters positioned on one half of it will only be able to attack enemies that reach them, meaning that if you want Kenji to attack this one enemy here, you'll need to change his position with someone else and have them replace his original spot. The battle system as a whole is really fun. All characters do their attack within one turn, so it's fun to think about the amount of damage you can do in one go. It's a bit tedious at times, but in general, I didn't see this game as that difficult when fighting. But that doesn't justify how much this game reeks of old school JRPG design. I mean, seriously. Maybe this shouldn't be a point of criticism, but I got into so many fights by just simply exploring around. I could be walking between 2 spaces on the map and the game brings me an enemy I didn't fully heal for. I get that random encounters were common around this time, but even then I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. It's not even the system itself, it's just the fact that I have to waste more time on some weak enemies when I'm trying to travel. Don't even get me started on moving around in the dungeons. The controls feel so slippery. And that's not all, I strongly advise anyone playing to use a guide. Progressing through the story heavily relies on following the dialogue. It can be super easy to get lost in these dungeons too, so trying to replay for a casual run can be a nightmare. Other than that, there's not much else to mention here. Persona 1 has some pretty simple things going on, which are what make it great. Graphically, the game looks decent enough. It gives off a dark and lonely feeling while still hopeful with the cast you hang out with. The pre-rendered cutscenes are easily my favorite part. They're mainly used for the more important plot points, but they're still a treat to watch. Finally, the music. This is probably where its fans get the most divided. With Persona 1 being remastered for the PSP, the soundtrack for this game was changed, turning it to a more J-pop and bouncy tone. I'm assuming this was to give it a bigger appeal to the people who just played Persona 3 and 4, which is fine if you ask me. However, Atlus didn't really bother giving the option to use the originals, which is weird, considering Persona 2 Innocent Sin, another remaster on PSP, does let you play between the new or original soundtrack. What do I think in this whole debate? Well, you're talking to someone who loves TMS and anything with a J-pop soundtrack. What do you think I was going to say? Yeah, I'm saying it, I played through this whole game with the PSP OST, and I adore every moment of it. The music here is just so good. Lost Forest and the opening song for this game have to be my favorite tracks. As for the PS1 version though, I can completely understand why people want it back. There's a certain eerie feeling that comes with it, and with playing the game, having to attack enemies in this weird world created from someone's dreams, it's quite an experience. Persona 1 really has a set tone for it, and that's what I love about it.
Relevation's Persona became an instant success, selling over 200,000 copies just within the first week. Not bad for a new IP if I do say so myself. It even remained as the best-selling Persona game in the first week until, we'll get to that until it's ready. But anyways, the game did super well and even critically, getting 8 and 10s for its setting, story, and gameplay. Soon, a few years later, it got its PSP release with a very similar amount of success on it. It didn't reach the same number of sales, but it was praised for fixing a lot of the issues people had with the original game. Persona 1 also got a manga around 1996 and soon reissued for 2009, retelling a few of the events of the game. Oh, and even as a fun fact, it got a mobile game release. Released in 2006, Atlus and BBMF, a mobile game company, developed a game called Persona, Chapter of the Foreign Tower of Emptiness. From what I can gather, it's mostly just a dungeon crawler utilizing locations of the game itself. Nothing groundbreaking, but quite interesting to see.
I'm going to be real with you. It's honestly amazing to believe what came from this entry. The thing with Persona 1 is that even with fans, this game isn't really seen in the best light. Watching other people's productions ranking these games, it's always been the lowest. Even called the black sheep of the series, which after playing it, I just have more questions than answers. Persona 1 shouldn't feel or be treated as this separate entity or unwanted child within these other great games. Is it dated by today's standards? Definitely. Is it a different beast from what came after? Absolutely. If I had to describe Persona in one word, it would be mysterious. It's hard to really know what to expect, and it was kind of unsettling throughout. But the more of it you play, the more you start to fully appreciate what the game has accomplished. I loved the music, the characters, and the story shows a lot of that charm. And the gameplay? Well, It's not the best, but I can still respect what it has going for it. It all still felt like a Persona game. I guess the reason I'm being this forgiving to it is because it was the first from this franchise. It's a time where developers, writers, directors are all experimenting with what the series would eventually turn into. Revelations, or Persona 1, is a game that I will always respect for what it does and what it has done. While I don't think it's the peak of the franchise, it will always have a special place in my heart. Tune in next time where I look over what some may argue is the magnum opus of the franchise. And as always, this is Akarioe from Mintjoy Pictures. This is Bunny.
And Captain.
From Mintjoy Pictures.
And cut.
Sir, why didn't you tell me it was live?
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, but you know me, last minute decisions and all. Why don't I make it up for you? Is there anything you want to eat?
Steak.
I had a feeling you'd say that. Alright then, just give me a moment though. If you want, just wait for me outside.
I wonder what she wants to see me for.
Just call me.
Meet me tonight at 6. Should I tell Minty?
Hey Miss Aoi, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, I was just thinking of some ideas for our project.
Oh, that's awesome. But we should get going though. I made us a reservation.
You're right, sorry about that.
Who knew traffic would have been so rough today?
Tell me about it. Say, Minty, I'm wondering, why didn't you let Akane invest for our project? She only wanted to investigate the company, right?
What? It's nothing. Plus, 10 million is nothing to us. Heck, that's gonna be pocket change.
Oh, come on. Sure, we're doing really well, but think about it. 10 million? Imagine the kinds of things we could do with that kind of budget. Is there something you're hiding from her?
Be honest, Miss Aoi. Can I trust you?
Your secrets are always safe with me. What is it?
Let's just say that my dad wasn't the kind of person I've always made him out to be.
Go on.
I was looking through some of the old documents at my office, and one of them was a list of several employees my dad owed due to overtime. And it's only until very recently that I'm trying to pay off these debts. And so if Akane finds out about this, well, it's likely we'll have to close the company's doors and she'll buy us out.
Sir, by any chance was there anyone by the name of Akira Ford?
Why do you ask?
Answer the question. Is there?
Yes.
So let me get this straight. Your dad essentially owed what I assume are thousands to mine, and you hid this from me this whole time?
Look, I can explain. I understand he was your dad, and I'm really sorry for what happened to him. But you see, I couldn't really find the time to do it. You know, with all the issues the company had and all that stuff.
And what gives you a reason to hide it from me, Minty? Do you even know what my dad did because of him? I thought you weren't like the others. You told me you cared for your employees.
Look, I know this isn't something you can forgive me so easily, but let's be positive, eh? You're here, still doing well. This is something to celebrate for the successes you have brought for Mintjoy Pictures. Cheers.
Cheers.
Excuse me really quick. Hello? An investment? Oh my god, yes! That's absolutely perfect! However... What? Oh, no, it's nothing. We can set up a meeting tomorrow if that's fine with you. Sounds good to me.
Maybe I should check on her. Wow, Minty was not kidding. Hi, is Miss Kage here by any chance?
Miss Kage? Yes. Do you have an appointment with her?
Not exactly, but...
Akari, it's so nice to see you. And you look gorgeous as always.
Thanks. But about your note...
Oh yes, you came at a perfect time. Follow me.
So, what exactly did you want me for?
I think you know what I wanted to talk to you about. You see this?
What about it?
Ever since I heard that Minty was back, I knew that you two were planning something to celebrate behind the scenes. I can see why Minty made you the host. But answer me this question. Do you feel like you're getting paid enough?
And why should I tell you how much I make?
You did save Minty's company after all. Don't you feel like that alone grants you a higher check? You are the one your fans look up to, you know.
I guess, but even if that were the case, I'm still happy with working for Minty. For the most part.
Even if it only grants you a small percentage of what you can truly make?
I don't need to be a famous celebrity to be happy. Minty's always there for me.
How cute. Listen, sweetie. In life, you can't rely on anyone. Everyone here just fights for themselves. I've certainly learned that the hard way. However, I see a lot of potential in you. I can pay triple of what Minty gives you, and you'll have an easier time working with me.
And what makes you think I will accept that?
So you're saying you don't want a bigger and easier reward? Think about it. It would be an honor to work with you. Now, if you excuse me, I'll be in a meeting with someone. If you ever change your mind, just call me.
As you wish. What's this? Did they raise my taxes again? What should I do? I should probably just rest.
I know. Don't worry. Just leave it to me.
Huh. So you want to start baking then? I see. This isn't half bad.
You really think so?
Yeah, if you think wasting your time on this will benefit us.
But Father...
If you think baking stuff like this will get you anywhere, the door's right there.
But Father, I worked really hard on it.
You really think this working hard mindset got me here? No, nobody's going to buy our products just because you made them. You get that? Now get back to work.
Yes, Father.
I'll show him.
Alright, Miss Aoi, just tell me when you're ready.
Got it. Just give me a moment. I can do this. I can do this.
Everything will be okay.
I can do this.
What? This can't be.
I'm really sorry.
I can do this. I can do this. Alright, sir. I'm ready. This is Bunny, and you're watching Personathon. That honestly went better than I expected, don't you think? Oh, this thing's on, right? Welcome back to our second episode of Personathon.
That's right. We've taken a look at what kickstarted the franchise and now we're moving on to its follow-up. This is a very interesting case because in the same vein as Persona 1, it's actually a... Oh no.
Something wrong, sir? Oh, okay. So just getting this out of the way, the thing about Persona 2 is that there are in fact two distinct games within the entry. So to save on time, I think it's best to review both. Now these two games have honestly interested me for the longest time. They were in fact the last of the games that I chose when going through the Persona series. All I knew was that these two are highly regarded and praised by hardcore Megami Tensei fans. Nevertheless, let's just see what came from Atlus's second step in the franchise. This is Persona 2 Innocent Sin. For those who haven't seen our first production on this series, feel free to check it out as I will continue from there. And as always, be sure to press that red button for future productions from us. With the surprising success from Revelations Persona, the teams at Atlus decided to plan out a sequel. Think of this game being a direct response to the criticisms the first game received, and Atlus improving upon them as a whole. While on the surface it looked to be a pretty simple type of sequel, there was one dynamic that would be utilized moving forward. That being the power of Kododama. To put it simply, this is a Japanese belief of how words can change the environment of a spiritual or fantasy world. A lot of the staff from the previous entry were back too, like Tadashi Satomi as the writer and Kazuma Kaneko as designer. The game just kind of followed pretty similar story themes like its predecessor, coming to terms to your true self, fighting demons, while also going through the typical life of a high school student. I do want to mention this game's localization though. Apparently the teams were quite iffy on actually releasing this in the West. This was for a handful of reasons, but it all boils down to the overabundance of references to Japanese culture and... Why is he wearing sunglasses? No, okay, I'm done. Nope, I'm out. They surprisingly never released it on the PS1, even if they could localize it. That wasn't the end for Innocent Sin though. Around April 2011, Persona 2 Innocent Sin got a remake on the PSP in Japan. And to everyone's surprise, it was released in the West in May of the same year. Unlike the Persona 1 remake, this one did get some localization changes. Not as drastic as Revelations on PS1, but there were some adjustments. I guess I can mention this as a fun fact for what they added. So, you know how in Persona 1 you only had a remixed soundtrack and not the original? Yeah, apparently you can switch between the new OST and the PS1 version. Guess they took some notes from P1's release, which is quite nice. It all seemed to have gone pretty smoothly in the end. Why don't we take a look at the game itself now? Captain, mind giving me a hand?
Oh geez, alright. I have no clue how, but apparently Innocent Sin made me question how the game's world even functions. I had to take actual notes while playing. Just to give you an idea what this game goes from, you're fighting a terrorist cult, to some guy named Joker, to sending rumors about this cult, to exploring ancient Mayan ruins, to fighting some guy named Fuhrer. What? What did I witness? Oh my god. And I thought Persona 1 was already weird enough. But alright, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let's start with a brief introduction. Persona 2 Innocent Sin takes place in Sumaru City. The protagonist, Tatsuya So, and two of his friends, Lisa and Eikichi, decide to play what's called the Joker game. It's a similar dynamic to the Persona game in P1, where you essentially try to summon a being into reality. What's different here is that the game can actually grant you a wish from your dreams. When trying this out, to everyone's surprise, Joker actually appears and steals everyone's hearts out. Wait, wrong one. Okay, so after summoning Joker, he decides to take all the energy from everyone who couldn't tell him his wish, only to later leave and cause destruction in Sumaru. You and your friends decide to catch up with him and arrive at Seven Sisters High. Here, you meet up with two other people, those being Maya, a journalist reporting on these recent events, and wait, Yukino, from Persona 1? Yes, actually. If you played Persona 1 prior, there's a few characters and ideas brought in from there over to here. Anyways, the five of them decide to team up and all go after Joker so that he can stop bending reality. It's up to this point where you're introduced to the Masked Circle, a terrorist group who wants to bring fear into the city by spreading rumors that cause absurd things to become real. Have the faces of children melt? Sure. Have the military armies from World War II come to life? Go ahead. Anything can go in this new reality the group made. Despite all this, you also have the ability to counter by spreading rumors to your own benefit. And so the story just sort of focuses on taking down the Masked Circle. But wait, there's more. Around halfway through the plot, you go deep inside a place called Mount Iwato. As you progress in the area, you actually get a few flashbacks to your past. So to keep it brief, Tatsuya, Eikichi, Lisa, and this other kid named Jin were all friends who played near the shrine. And because they always played and spoke to each other wearing a mask from their favorite show, they decided to make this part of their club, calling themselves the Masked Circle. As the group was getting along, they met another girl called Maya, who was seen as a big sister to everyone, so they decided to let her into the gang. They all got along pretty well until one day Maya had to move out of the city because of her dad's job. This did not sit well with everyone. So guess what they did to stop her? You probably won't believe me, but what if I told you they trapped her inside the shrine while it's on fire? What? These kids are evil! Okay, sorry about that. But that's sort of where the whole flashback ends. But this makes the group realize something. The same Maya that was with them is the same one when they were kids. Not only that, Jin is Joker. He was Joker the whole time. Oh my god, this is some top tier writing here. Just wow, seeing these characters remember what happened only to see Maya live and well was absolutely beautiful. We were shown like a very dark side to our main cast, which is not really normal for a lot of games and media in general. Back to the main plot though, now you had to deal with a bigger threat. You see, Jin's father gave him the power to do whatever he wanted so long as he got this one thing for the Mayan temples. But with Jin realizing everything that's happened, he decides to join us to take him down. We go after them and destroy the armies, but apparently an alien spaceship called Xibalba appears. So now we go over there to finish our final battle with Nyarlathotep. Huh? I thought we killed you in Persona 1. Yeah, for extra context, this is one of the few bosses you beat in Persona 1. Whatever the case is, due to the reality he's caused being so, you know, we only have one choice to get things back to normal. Reset reality and erase all of it like it never happened. This was probably just as emotional, if not even more than the scene at Mount Iwato. In here, you sadly say your goodbyes to your friends and reset the events of the story. We come back to the beginning of the game, but now confident in what we want to do in life. Whatever the case is, that's more or less the story for P2 Innocent Sin. There were quite a few things I skipped out on, like the part where you fight your own shadows, but trust me, this is going on longer than I thought, like Jesus Christ. But anyways, what are my thoughts on this game, you ask? It's amazing. I'd say one of my favorites. It's weird, it's so convoluted, there's a whole lot of things going on, but it somehow always kept me at the edge of my seat. Remember how I said back in my Resonance of Fate production that the story was bizarre yet charming? Well, if you take that and combine it with really strong characters and arcs, you have Persona 2 Innocent Sin. The emotional moments felt genuine and beautiful. There's so many things going on in this narrative that I'm just still shocked at how well it worked. Remember the shadow versions of the characters? I think that's where they really push the motivations of what the characters want in life. We have Eikichi, who's essentially a gang leader, and a lot of his arc is about what it means to be in a position of power like his. Is it to bring fear? Bring justice? Questions that really make you think. I could really go on about what things this game does really well. It's honestly kinda hard to find any negatives on this. Yes, it can be kinda hard to follow, but over time you kinda get used to what's happening. As a whole, Persona 2 Innocent Sin is easily a game I'd recommend for the story alone. Oh geez, we need to talk about this game, right? Alright, so to keep it brief, Eternal Punishment basically plays off the events of Innocent Sin but in this new reality or timeline. However, instead of playing as Tatsuya, you play as Mai. Not only that, the entire cast is made up of adults too. The story is pretty similar to what we just saw but with a few changes. Mai is now investigating the Joker game and coming across abnormal activities because of it, so you decide to team up with, you won't believe me on this but trust me, people from the Persona 1 cast. Yeah, we get to see old faces like Nanjo and Yukino. This is really cool and it just further connects the series as canon. So it's up to Mai, members of the P1 cast, and a few other faces to find the truth behind the Joker game. And that's kind of it. Definitely feels more grounded and has some very interesting characters like Bafu. He's straight up a Taiwanese hacker who was part of the mafia. The story as a whole felt alright at most. Not as crazy as Innocent Sin, but definitely a lot more interesting and deep. Wait, I take it back, the ending is so damn good!
So for those who haven't caught up, Persona 2 looks very similar to 1. There's not much that I can say that wasn't said already. I do want to remind everyone that my thoughts come from the PSP versions of Persona 1 and 2. So if some of these improvements weren't on the PS1, my apologies. Anyway, one of the best changes made was to make the dungeon crawling and walking around areas in third person. I didn't really mind how it was in its predecessor, but being able to see your character now makes it a lot easier to see your surroundings. Yes, there's still the whole random encounter issue, and this was especially a pain in Mount Iwato, but honestly, this is a good step forward. And hey, at least we got more than one character portrait for the main cast. I'd even argue some of the in-game animations feel more expressive. Pre-rendered cutscenes can look a bit off and stiff, but I still really like them. Not much more to be said there. As for music, I listened to both the remix and original tracks as I was recording, and both were good. Really good, actually. If I had to name some of my favorite tracks, it would be Maya and Philemon's theme. In terms of new additions, though, there's the so-called spreading rumors mechanic. As you progress through the game, you'll be able to talk to one of the city's detectives to spread rumors around. To get these rumors, you need to talk to different people called rumor mongerers, who in exchange of giving them intel, they give you something you didn't know. I'm allergic to rumors. You can even do this with demons if you get them on your side. This will be a crucial mechanic since it'll be how you unlock new weapons, side quests, discounts on items, and just the majority of the game's secrets. This is a really neat system and it encourages a lot more exploration for the game.
Moving on to sales, how did Innocent Sin do? Pretty alright. From what I can gather, the PS1 version sold 275,000 copies in Japan. As for the PSP remake, it got to 110,000. Surprisingly, it became Atlus's best-selling game for the year, which that's nice to hear. Not only that, it also reached second place in the sales chart during its first week. The West version of this game actually sold pretty well, selling up to second place on the system sale charts for that week. So good on you, Atlus, for giving this game a second chance. Now on to Eternal Punishment. It sold around 200,000 units in Japan by the end of the release year, and for the West, well, there wasn't really anything I could find about it. At most, I just found out that the PSP port that was released only in Japan sold 57,000 units. In terms of reception though, both games have received massive praise from fans and critics. Heck, a lot of older Megaten fans consider this duology as one of the best entries in the Persona series. It's that good. Very interesting stuff.
And that's Persona 2's duology. And this whole era for Persona, really. Up until now, all of the games we reviewed have been on the PS1. Not only that, they had a very similar presentation and style of gameplay and writing. These are considered, as many call, the black sheep of the series. this boils down to the fact that Atlus doesn't really promote these games. No matter how many spin-offs, games, or any new Persona content we either get very minor references to Persona 1 and 2, or flat out nothing. Why is this? There's been a handful of theories as to why, and I think it's just a matter of how different these two are from these here. Persona 1 and 2 have aged really poorly as of late with newer players. Think of this from someone who just played Persona 5. You finished it and you want to see where it started. And you're greeted to this. I can understand why someone wouldn't want to check the other games out, thus leaving Atlus to not promote them as much. This doesn't mean that these aren't worth your time, however. Playing Persona 1 and 2 has been quite an experience, and I think this era of the series deserves the same love and respect like the modern titles. Hopefully within the near future, Atlus does eventually bring a return for these classics. Tune in next time where we finally check out the modern era of this series. This is Bunny.
And Captain.
From Mintjoy Pictures.
And cut.
Thank God it's over.
Great job, Miss Aoi. We can continue later if you want.
Thank you, but can we make the rest of them pre-recorded, please?
Oh, yeah, of course. I really hope this isn't overwhelming you.
No. I can handle this, really. But can I take a break?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll be in my office if you need me. Hey, so about keeping the series live, we're changing plans. I know, I'm really sorry about this. Just give us one more chance, alright? End of the week? I don't think that's possible. No, wait. I'll make sure we get these done.
Hey, it's me.
Oh, hey there, sweetie. Did you make up your mind yet?
Well, no, but I wanted to ask you something. Do I have to leave Minty if I have to work for you?
Oh, no. You should stay. It'll only make things more suspicious.
Well, yeah, I guess you got a point.
Is everything all right?
Things have been getting rough here. At first I thought this project would be fun, but now Minty's brought in investors, he's being really pressuring on me, and I'm starting to feel dizzy. I just don't know what to do.
Seems like you're seeing his true colors.
What are you talking about? He told me everything about you. He's just doing what his dad wanted.
Which is exactly what will happen if you keep working for him. He's just going to overwork you every single day, not take you into consideration, and guess who's going to end up like the rest of his father's workers?
My entire life for the past 14 years. I don't even...
Where are you? Dad! No! Don't say that! How do you even know about them? You're only saying this to scare me, aren't you?
Trust me, sweetie. I have connections. It's only a matter of time until he makes the same mistakes. But you're free to take this as you wish. Just call me if you're up for our deal. Take care.
Aren't you so adorable?
Whew. What a long day.
Welcome back, honey. How was work?
Better than usual, I guess. Say, she's still playing that game?
Yes. She only took a break when I told her to eat. She really seems to enjoy it.
Good to know. Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ford. I'm really sorry for the sudden news, but we need you back as soon as possible. One of our executives was facing serious health issues, so we need you to take his spot for tonight.
What? But my shift just ended. Can we ask someone else on your team?
I understand the inconvenience, but you are the only one I can rely on for the moment. It's either you or the company facing serious heavy losses. See you in my office.
I'm sorry, Ashley, but I have to go now. This wouldn't have happened if you let me invest in my own company.
Hey, everything will be okay. Don't worry about me. Remember what we settled on.
You're right. I promise to be back as soon as possible. Take care of her for me.
Oh hey Miss Aoi, perfect timing. I got big news. So I got us an investor and they're willing to help us out. But I do need us to have all of our reviews done by the end of the week. So if we get everything recorded today, that'll give us plenty of time to edit. What do you say?
Right now? Oh, don't worry. I can handle it.
It's only a matter of time until he makes the same mistakes.
Sir, I know this is a bit sudden to ask, but since we're currently doing so many productions, do you think I could get a raise? Please?
Look, Miss Aoi, I know you mean well, but as of now, I don't really think that's possible due to it being just out of my control, and it doesn't seem like there's any way I can work around this. Give it some time, maybe after our physical year, and we can later discuss about this. Hope that's understandable.
Yes, I understand. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Aoi. Yeah, like I mentioned, we got some new investors, and I cannot disappoint these ones, you know? Oh, that must be them. I'll be right back, Miss Aoi. Just finish your work, and I'll assign you something later on. See ya.
Got it.
Miss Aoi, are you there? Miss Aoi, Akari, where'd she go?
Well, what do you think? Is it true?
Oh, under the mask? I don't know, would that even be possible?
Oh, believe me, with Akane in charge, anything is possible.
Well, let's just wait and find out, I suppose.
What are they talking about?
It's so nice to see you all here.
What the?
I am your host, Akari Oe, and I'm excited to announce what has to be the biggest production in our company's history yet. May I present to you Under the Mask, an ambitious, extensive retrospective on one of my favorite games of all time, Persona 5. With our top-of-the-line gear and assets, we'll be sure to bring you a production like never seen before.
Well said, sweetie. But isn't there one last thing you want to say?
Well... yes. Minty, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but this is goodbye. The game was just starting to become really hard for me to get through.
What is going on? What is this story?
Just why? Why is this a thing? Not only because of every issue I had, but also because of this. And you know what? That's one of my biggest complaints with P3. Welcome back to our third episode of Personathon, the series where we give an overall look back on the history and changes throughout the Persona series. We are now reaching the PS2 titles, and let's kick it off with Persona 3. Oh, jeez, now this is interesting. Persona 3 is both a game I know a lot and yet nothing about. This was the last game I had to check out before making this series, yet I still knew a lot about it regarding the character, story, gameplay. Heck, I can even name you all the main differences with FES and Portable. But whatever the case is, as always, if you want to stay updated on more productions like this, be sure to press that red button. This is our review on Persona 3. So the year is 2003. Wow, that's new. Alright, 2003. Nocturne released and development officially began for P3. However, things were definitely different. The new hardware not only gave more possibilities for ideas, it also made games really stand out from each other with their gameplay and art styles. This did get art director Shigenori Sojima in a complicated spot. Wait, you might be saying, what happened to the creators of the series? Like Kazuma Kanedo? Well, about that. Sojima actually got the job from Kanedo to gain some experience. This gave him a lot of pressure since he didn't want to disappoint fans. Keep in mind that while Atlus wasn't the biggest company compared to now, during this time they did have a very passionate fan base. Fortunately, Sojima came up with a new direction for the art style. As stated in an interview, he decided to go with a style reminiscent of animes and manga at the time. There was an emphasis on the UI, making it much more appealing to stand out in its marketing. That in full anime cutscenes. Say goodbye to that jank 3D animation and say hello to fancy 2D. This is only scratching the surface of the many additions made onto Persona 3. The PS2 hardware really gave developers new ideas to implement. They really wanted to push the idea of overcoming the fear of death, so they did this by making the characters AI controlled. And the way you could make them stronger is by increasing their bonds with each of them. There were a lot of things cut too, however. For example, the demon negotiation system for Persona 1 and 2 was completely removed. Though this was also where the famous social link system was introduced. As a whole, there's generally not so much that needs to be said, or let alone has been documented on this game's development. Anyhow, Persona 3 eventually got its release on July 13th, 2003 Japan, August 14th, 2007 in the US, and February 29th, 2008 in Europe.
And as usual, I'll go over the story. Well, the story is kind of easier to follow this time around. You play as Makoto Yuki, a transfer student who moved to the city after a fatal incident that happened to both of his parents. You just try to get through school as usual. However, there's been some strange activity going around the city. This is all a cause of a rising number of people with apathy syndrome, a condition that's plagued across the area. This is how you find out the truth behind your classmates. You see, the thing about these guys is that they're part of the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or C's for short. These guys basically try to defeat any monsters that are lurking around. Said monsters, also known as shadows, appear on what's called the Dark Hour, a hidden part of the day that only happens during midnight. Only those powerful enough can access the Dark Hour, so it's up to you, Yukari, Mitsuru, Akihiko, and many more faces you meet to see who's truly behind the Dark Hour. And well, yeah, that's kind of it really. The thing about Persona 3 to 5 is that they have simpler conflicts and ideas, but they make up for it by creating a new world and some lore around it. And that's kind of why I'll be a bit more brief on these summaries. I'll be sure to mention any major events though. So, what do I think? I didn't like the story, for the most part. Let's get this out of the way. I really like the concept. The thing about Persona 3 most different in the whole series is the tone itself. This game thrives off of a dark, more serious, more mature kind of story, and it does it really well. Since the beginning, you feel a sense of fear and mystery. What is going on? Why are there these incidents? Why is there a hidden hour that people are turning into this? These are all questions I was asking myself. Not to mention some of the disturbing imagery, like how did you summon a persona? You summon a persona by shooting yourself. What? Combine that with the lighting, the music, everything. It just all goes so well together. Oh, and don't get me started with the themes here. The fear of death is one of the main things you encounter, and we see most, if not all, the characters having to deal with it one way or another. I kid you not, we have Ken, a literal child, having to see someone who he wanted to kill die in front of his face. Speaking of which, I might as well talk about who's really behind the Dark Hour. Well, you see, we initially think it's these 12 big shadows represented by the Arcanas, basically like the names that you had for different personas like Fool, Lovers, Empress, etc. So according to our chairman, Ikutsuki, by defeating them, we will put an end to the Dark Hour. However, oh god, I need to talk about this scene. Okay, so after defeating the 12 shadows, we meet up with Ikutsuki, who, for some reason, does a massive 180 turn and tells us this was all part of his plan just to reunite the shadows for this end of the world deal. When things couldn't get any worse, after we defeat him, we also get introduced to this one new character who there's no build up on, called Ryoji, who later gets revealed he is the last of the shadows from the Arcana, who by the end of January will turn into a god called Nyx, who wants to destroy humanity. Like, what is going on? What is this story? Okay, sorry about that. Let me explain. So, yes, you fight this final god from this dude you randomly meet called Ryoji. And well, what he's supposed to do, he's basically telling you that he's the final Arcana. And by the end of January, he's gonna turn into Nyx and wants to destroy humanity. So you can either fight him, who is supposedly unbeatable, or you can just accept death. The reason I'm getting so worked up about this is because it really just doesn't explain it too well, or it doesn't have like a good build up. At most, I guess one of your party members remembers about Ryoji by meeting him in the Dark Hour and starts going into a fight with him. Maybe it's just me, maybe I forgot any context prior, but I do not remember anything I just mentioned about this Ryoji guy at all. And that's just Ryoji. Don't even get me started with Ikutsuki. He just has a complete 180 turn in his character. He went from a really nice and funny guy to suddenly acting like he's some cult leader. He crucifies us and asks Aigis to kill us. What? I genuinely liked the story. I liked where it was going with the 12 shadows, but when it was going into this part of the game, it just went so out of nowhere. It took me by surprise. I didn't know what was going on. It's not all bad though. the ending after you defeat Nyx, seeing the protagonist just accept death and sacrifice himself for the better of others, that was a pretty decent ending. While I wasn't a big fan of this cast in general, I will admit some of the character interactions have been adorable to see. For example, we have Junpei, one of the C's members, and Chidori, a member of another team called Strega. These guys are basically just one of the few antagonists you see along the way. Back to these two, however. So Junpei initially doesn't know that Chidori is part of Strega, but he does open up to her and talk about how he wants to be a leader. However, this ultimately backfired. So we go out there and try to save Junpei and also capture Chidori, who we later take to the hospital to get some intel about Strega. We don't really get much info from her, but we do get to see a little bit of a chemistry between her and Junpei. Initially, she was very scared of the idea of feeling attached to someone, but she ended up accepting that and even helped save Junpei from dying, all at the cost of her own life. This was, in my opinion, one of the best arcs in the entire game. Seeing those small moments with the two and how much Junpei cares for Chidori, someone who originally hated him, to now being someone who wants to be with him, is really heartwarming. This just further exemplifies how prominent death is throughout the game. The other characters are fine, I guess. I don't know, they just felt all very dry as a whole. We don't get to see them open up until way later down the line, like around halfway through the game. I get what they're doing. They basically want to make the character arcs and development more realistic as a gradual thing than rather just them being friends on the first day. And that's fine, I admire it. It's just not a writing style that I'd associate with something like Persona. This sounds more like it's in line with something like Megaten. On top of that, some of the development really isn't good. Ken's whole ordeal to his mom dying isn't really touched on too much other than the set date. I mean, credit where credit is due. I'd say Akihiko and Shinjiro's friendship is probably one of the coolest parts of the game as well, but I still didn't really like this cast, honestly. But I mean, as a whole, I'd say Persona 3 is alright, I guess. The concept's neat. Some of the characters are genuinely great, but looking at it at the big picture, I was left with a lot to be desired. And this is just a story. Bunny, you know the drill.
Alright, so Persona 3 is pretty much what you expect. You run around dungeons, fighting enemies, collect personas to fuse new ones, gather items, and having to balance it all by living as a high school student. However, a lot has changed. So one of the biggest changes made here is instead of going to different dungeons or areas of a city to fight enemies, you mainly encounter them in here, Tartarus. Tartarus is essentially one big tower with over 200 floors, each with increasingly stronger enemies. There are limits to how far up you can go, but as you progress in the main story, you'll have access deeper to Tartarus. Once you get to the top, you'll fight the final boss. And, oh geez, I'll have to talk about Nyx, don't I? Don't worry, we'll get to him in a moment. Coming back to Tartarus, however, I honestly really like this inclusion. One of my biggest issues with the previous two games was that I constantly needed a guide to see where to go, especially since the location you had to go relied on knowing what the characters just said. Here, all you need to do is talk to Mitsuru or later on Fuka during the evening and tell them you want to go explore. This helps with grinding as well. The fact all enemy types are located in one area lets you gain as much experience as you need. In theory. You see, one of the more questionable additions is the condition of your party members. This means that depending on how your character is feeling, whether it be great, good, tired, or sick, will heavily affect things like your defense and attack during battles. Heck, if a party member is too tired and you leave back to the entrance of Tartarus, they'll completely leave you and go to their dorm. I'm very mixed about this mechanic. Not only does it limit your ability to grind as much, it can also be very tedious that you're having a character suddenly say they're exhausted while you're around stronger enemies. That being said, I do see some benefits to it as well. It definitely has motivated me to make all my party members as equally strong in case one does leave, and you could say it adds a sense of challenge that's not really present in JRPGs. It's definitely a fascinating system. Another thing kind of exclusive to P3 is, as said earlier, all characters except yourself are AI controlled. This wasn't too big of a deal, I'll be blunt and say that I made my playthrough on easy just in case. And even then, my party was really competent in what they were doing. Once we figured out the weaknesses of enemies, they were just taking them down one by one, all to do the all-out attack. I'm sure many of you know what this is already. Once all enemies are attacked either through a weakness they have or a critical hit, you get the choice to do this move. What it does is gather all your party members to go as mentioned, all out on the enemy. You really want to be doing this as much as you can because it's also one of the main ways you'd be getting your personas. After ending a fight with an all-out attack, you get to pick between a few cards. That be more money, experience, a new persona, or an item. In all honesty, Persona 3 heavily streamlined the gameplay to feel a lot snappier and faster thanks to these inclusions. But that's only half of what the game has to offer. The rest is unlike anything we've seen in both the previous games and JRPGs in general, the social links. I've been teasing about this for a while now, and how could I not? So for those who don't know what social links are in Persona, it's basically mini storylines dedicated for a character. Whether it be related to the main story, party member, or even some random person you meet, there is a social link for you to do. This can give a much deeper insight into a character's development and even adds a small arc for that character to overcome. The higher you level up a social link, the more powerful personas you can fuse, and the more you get to learn about said character. This is one of the best designs mechanic ever brought in my opinion. Not only does it help you further progress in Tartarus, but it also works wonders as a fun distraction from all the shadow hunting you do. There is a caveat to this, however. With Persona 3, everything is now structured as if you were having an entire school year. What this means is that anything you do will progress throughout the day, and social links are one of the many different activities you can do. Not to mention, in order to level up certain links, let alone unlock them, you need to have certain social stats in yourself. In P3's case, this is charm, knowledge, and courage. To increase them, you have to do different kinds of activities throughout those days, like karaoke, watch movies, study, etc. Which, keep in mind, will also spend a bit of your day. So in other words, you essentially have to strategically plan out how to make best use of your time. This further shows what makes the system so well made, but is also why I think Persona 3 is very poorly designed. I know, that's quite a take, but hear me out. The game does do a good job at explaining how the system works, and I didn't feel overwhelmed. But the problem was that there's not a whole lot to do, specifically at night. There's just not much you can do other than some karaoke or to study. No joke, once I maxed out my social stats, I just slept in the evenings or went to Tartarus when it was absolutely necessary. Oh, and not to mention their party members don't get their social links unlocked until the later half of the game. I absolutely despised this because my only options were people who I didn't feel much attachment to, or to do more karaoke. This is so dumb, because, get this, by the time you unlock Fuka's social link, which is the earliest one you can get, you already have more than half the main cast as party members. Why do I need to wait until June 15th for the first social link? Why do I need to completely ace an exam to unlock Mitsuru's? Why the heck do I need to wait until January 8th for Aiga's social link? It's just a few weeks away from fighting Nyx. And don't get me started with that social link breaking idea. Get this, if you don't hang out with someone for a very long time, you get punished, and your relationship with that person can end. And getting them back is already a challenge on its own. Just why? Why is this a thing? I don't recall this system being so bad. It's so easy to just forget about a social link. Why does the game need to punish me so hard for it? Now, I know you're all saying this game is meant to feel more realistic, and I can tell. From the conditions, to the social link system, to the darker tone, to waiting until New Year's to simply talk to my toaster waifu, this is easily a modern Persona game, but with an emphasis to make it more realistic. And you know what? That's one of my biggest complaints with P3. Look, I love Persona. From the characters, to the gameplay, to the absurdity it can go, I love all of it. But I think Persona 3 lacks what makes me adore the series. Its story became so dark and absurd, it just became comical in some cases. While I loved a handful of the characters, it wasn't as much compared to both what we had before and later on. The game was just starting to become really hard for me to get through. Not only because of every issue I had, but also because of this. This is Nyx, the final boss of the game. Single-handedly, the hardest boss in the series. What you have to do is empty his health bar. The problem is that after each time he was switched to a new arcana, those that represent the shadows from earlier. I spent so many hours just trying to figure out how to beat him, constantly grinding, trying new strategies, anything to finally say I finished the game. It was dreading, it was a pain, and I don't think I could do that same boss again. All in all, Persona 3. It definitely had some growing pains like 1, for better or worse. There's no denying that this game easily influenced what's to come later down in the series. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to get some water. I need a breather.
Guess I'll go over the rest then. Before we get on to the reception and whatnot, I do want to mention very briefly the different versions that Persona 3 received. Let's start with FES. This was the point where the series started getting a more definitive version of its original release, maybe adding a new character, another dungeon, or just quality of life improvements. FES is basically that. It adds a new chapter to the game called The Answer, and to put it simply, it's an epilogue that continues the lives of the party members 3 months after the events of the original game. It's not the most loved addition to this game to many fans. Me personally, it's alright. The story mainly revolves around knowing what happened after you defeated Nyx and, well, the death of this guy. Some new enemies appear and you have to figure out what's going on. It's mostly just more Persona 3 gameplay tied with a neat little story. Persona 3 Portable, however, is the more interesting of the 3 versions. Oh jeez, I completely forgot that remake. This was released in 2009 for the PlayStation Portable. A lot has been added, but also changed as well. It's a bit of a downgrade graphically, with the game feeling much more like a visual novel, and there's no 3D areas to explore except Tartarus. Despite all that, you can finally control your party members, and best of all, play as a female protagonist. This is really cool. Playing as her gives you a lot of changes like a different UI color and gives you a few more social links as well. Personally, I enjoyed Portable a lot more than FPS, mainly because of how many issues it fixed. Sure, the story's still the same, and it is a lot more simplified since it was made for a console weaker than the PS2, but still. And well, as many of you know, there's gonna be a Persona 3 remake around 2024. I sadly didn't have the time to cover it here because obvious reasons. So, do we plan on reviewing it? Anyways, let's get to the reception. Persona 3 sold over 127,000 copies in its first week, with FES by 2008, it sold around 210,000. As for Portable, it sold 158,000 within the first month of release. Critically, this was once again a very positive entry for the series, with both versions of the games getting in the high 80s. A lot of praise went into the social links, the story, and the gameplay as a whole. And as you can tell, this was only the beginning of Atlus's milking of Persona. I kid you not, we got 3 anime movies. It's cast on Persona Q1 and 2, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, a dancing spin-off, and so many more tie-ins like mangas, stage musicals, and merchandise. There's no denying this was a turning point, not only for Persona, but for Atlus as a company.
I know I have been very negative towards this entry. I know that this will definitely be one of my most controversial productions in my career, but I want you all to know that I'm doing this because I care for this franchise. Whether it be 3, 4, or 5, this is where I and many people have first been introduced to these games. This and the upcoming games all have a very special place in our hearts. There's a reason why Atlus mainly focuses on these 3, and I'm not here to downplay the accomplishments that P3 has done. Say what you want, but this entry was easily one of the best things the series could ever get. Without it, I don't think these next games would be as popular as they are now. Heck, it would have probably gotten a similar fate like Atlus's other franchise, eventually abandoned and never to be seen again. Just another experiment that felt too niche or similar to the Megami Tensei. So, thank you, Persona 3. You may not be my favorite entry, but you showed me what makes me love this series. With that said, I'm really happy to have you all support us to this point. Now, if you excuse me, I'll move on to what just might be the game that made me fall in love with the series. This is Bunny.
And Captain.
From Mintjoy Pictures.
Dad, I thought you said you'll stop smoking.
Sorry, it's just been really rough lately.
Do you want to talk about it?
Well, if you really insist. Let's just say life's been pretty unfair. That's kind of the reason why you don't see me at home too often. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What matters most is your well-being. You're a very kind-hearted and smart girl, Akari. Who knows? Maybe one day, when you're older, we could start our own company.
Like the one you work for?
Yes, like the one I work for. What? This can't be.
What is it?
Be right back. Finish up your homework.
Welcome to 99 News. I'm your host, Speed, and my gosh, have things gone overboard. Right now, I'm reporting outside of the state's court. After Akira Aoi's departure from Mintjoy Pictures, speculation arose and tensions from the capitalist empires have skyrocketed, with Mint Co. suing its competitor. Further details have yet to be revealed, but I'll be sure to keep you updated on the matter.
All right, settle down. Settle down. We have a case in session. Now then, I see we have some old friends coming back. What brings you two here to be meeting us this time? Knowing how both of you can be a bit hectic, let's keep this session on a more mature side, shall we?
Of course, Your Honor. You see, I came to report a case of commercial bribery between Miss Aoi and Miss Kage. Miss Aoi and I were just preparing to make some productions until I got this note. It seems that Miss Kage bribed or was incentivizing her to leave.
Sir, I really didn't mean to. She told me.
I think we need to hear someone else's side. Right, Your Honor?
Affirmative. Tell us, Miss Kage, what was Miss Aoi's involvement in all of this?
Well, to put it simply, Miss Aoi came around a few hours after I received my latest call from her. Hey, sweetie. Nice to see you again. I just finished preparing all the things for you.
Please just be something simple. My head hurts.
All you need is to wear this, and you'll be using a special camera for the footage. Minty thinks he's so clever with his new style.
Oh, are you sure this is a good idea? What are you trying to do?
I wish to give you the details, but we don't have time. Go on now. We have a few minutes. And the rest is history. Miss Aoi and I recorded the footage and went live every way we could imagine.
Yeah, I saw it too. Man, the people were... It was something.
Your Honor.
Oh, my bad. Okay, let me get this straight, Mr. Leafston. You're suggesting that because of a card you saw, there was some sort of bribery involved?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you have any further proof of this?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Do you have any legal documentation or deal with Miss Aoi that prevents her from working for Akane? You must have had to when you hired her.
Miss Aoi, has there been any form of exchange between you and Miss Kage?
Well... Not at all, sir. I just wanted to work with Akane, that's all.
It seems Minty can't comprehend the difference between that and bribery.
Hey, at least I don't try to skirt the laws here, you cloud chaser.
What did you just call me?
Hey! What did I just say? Please keep order inside this session. I think I've heard enough. After hearing both of your perspectives, I sadly have to dismiss the case. Case closed.
What?
Listen, Mr. Leafston, according to state law, Akari is legally allowed to work for Akane. Furthermore, I believe this to be a case of employee poaching, which isn't bribery and therefore not a crime. Considering you didn't make her a new contract or added some non-compete agreements for her, I unfortunately can't do anything about this. Akari is free to work for Pepperco.
Hey, Minty. Maybe next time you should stop being so attached to your workers. You never know what could happen.
Minty, wait!
Jesus. Who even let these kids take control of their companies in the first place?
Minty! Wait, I can explain, please.
If you truly can, then answer this. Of all people, why would you work for her?
Minty, please, just listen to me.
No need, sweetie. Let the adults settle this.
Minty!
Oh, what's your deal, Akane?
Oh, it's nothing. Let's just say your little friends told me a bit about your recent behavior towards her, your lack of financial or health support, and having her work overtime, all for this silly little project of yours? And I thought you were better than your father. Guess history really does repeat itself after all.
Akari, was I really mistreating you? Why didn't you tell me anything? Fine, if that's how you want to take this, then I'll get a new host.
What? Minty, don't listen to her.
No need, sweetie.
Minty!
I'm sorry, Akari, but there's no other choice. Enjoy your new job. You're fired.
No. Let me go!
You two breaking up? You look adorable. Good luck finding one with that reputation of yours, Minty. Now then, if you excuse us, we have a production to make. Follow me, sweetie.
Back to square one.
Aw, still feeling down, sweetie?
What do you want?
Just wanted to see if everything's all right. I also just finished setting up everything for our project.
Just leave me alone.
Oh, come on. Wouldn't you want to check it out?
Hold on. You made all this?
Mm-hmm. As someone who has been hosting several years, I see a lot of potential in you. If everything on this project goes according to plan, I'll give you what you truly deserve. You'll have so many new fans looking up to you and almost never have to deal with your current problems.
How can I be sure I can trust you?
Oh, I don't know. It's not like our company makes an average of over 60 billion per year, sometimes more.
60 billion?
Are you interested?
Can't complain now. Where do I start?
Come in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Leafston. Or should I say, Minty? I just came here to have a talk with you.
Is that for the audition? Good. Okay, so I have a simple production, just record it and we'll work from there.
You seem to have learned a thing or two from your father, haven't you?
My dad? What are you talking about? How do you know him? Mom?
It's been a while, hasn't it? I really like how you turned the place.
Oh, thanks, I guess. But what are you doing here anyways? Probably working with Akane, aren't you?
Akane? Ah, you mean that lady you compete with. I never worked with her, but let's say she's been a regular in my end. But anyways, is everything all right? I heard the news between you and Akari. Did something happen?
I'm just as confused as you are. I don't know what came over her. Just deciding to work with one of my competitors would be a smart idea? I mean, there's sadly just not much I can do right now. So far, I'm just trying to find a host, but I haven't had any luck. Guess this really is the end of this company.
Already looking for a host, eh? Well, I think I can be a good fit, don't you think?
What? No way. You don't even know what the project's about.
Oh, come on, it'll be fun. I can't do it for too long because, you know, my store. But I do know some stuff about being a host. Unless you want to do it yourself. I still remember how obsessed you were with that one game. What was the name? Tokyo Mirage Sessions?
Listen, do you have any idea of the position we're in right now? Could you maybe take this a little more seriously?
All right. Well, what if we tried hosting together, like mother and son? Listen, I know how things are for you right now, and I'm sorry. I understand I've never been there for you when you needed me, but I don't want you to give up like this. If it helps, I wanted to also bring you this. It's not a lot, but I think it could help finish your project. You can pay it back later.
Listen, you don't have to, really.
I know, but it's the least I could do. You can trust me with this project. What do you say?
Deal.
Oh, don't listen to him. We're doing this because I'm hosting now.
This is our review on Persona 4. As I said, I'm Captain and you're Luna, alright? Oh, it's recording? Yeah, welcome back to Personathon. As you can see, there's been a few changes going around. Due to some budgeting issues, we had to make several compromises for our next productions.
Oh, don't listen to him. We're doing this because I'm hosting now.
Yeah, as I was saying, we might as well get to the main topic for today, Persona 4. Oh boy. Saying that I have a long history with this game is an understatement. Not only was it my first ever Persona game, well technically it was Persona Q2, but that doesn't count. But this, alongside 5, are the games I have the most knowledge about. From their stories, to the characters, to the community's views, you name it. We also made a fun review on this game back when we started the company, but
So for those who don't know, I love the Persona series.
let's just say it's not one of our best produced productions.
Aw, you've truly grown so much.
So as part of Personathon, my co-host here, Luna, and I will be giving our ultimate retrospective on one of the most influential games in the Persona series as a whole. This is our review on Persona 4.
So, when does my part go?
Just do the development. It's right there.
The year is around 2006. Persona 3 released on consoles and already became a major success for Atlus within its first month. So, just like our previous episodes, it was only a matter of time that another sequel would be greenlit. Not as ambitious or shocking as the previous entry, but quite interesting nonetheless. The thing about Persona 4 is that the developers wanted to make an experience by improving the new innovations that Persona 3 brought in, but not completely make a repeat of its story and setting. They did this by creating a story around a murder mystery. This would help Persona 4 stand out from its contemporaries and keep players engaged. Stated by Katsura Hashino, the story took heavy inspiration from mystery novelists like Agatha Christie, most known for And Then There Were None, and Seishi Yokomizo, the author of the Hoshin murders. On top of the plot, the location was also drastically changed. Instead of being a student who lives in a big or metropolitan city, Persona 4 sets itself in Inaba, a small town on the countryside. This might have caused a bit of conflict between the team, stemming from them just having different views on how they see a rural town. In that case, why not go check out the area itself?
That's actually what the developers did. The entire staff went by Hashino's words, location hunting, on what could be the perfect example of Inaba.
Ooh, being a game developer must be nice if they let you travel.
He describes the goal as to find a quote, for better or for worse, a run-of-the-mill town. Despite this being a brand new sequel, the budget remained around the same as Persona 3's. This led to the teams making a few compromises, such as not really having a lot of places to go in 4. Fortunately, they made it up by having several in-game activities that can raise your stats. There's also been a lot of improvements from Persona 3, like letting you control your party members, and the weather forecast system. In other words, having days with certain conditions that heavily affect the story. Nevertheless, everything was settled and we got an official reveal for P4 in the Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu in March of 2008. And that's kinda it for Persona 4's development. The best way to really put it is, just build off of Persona 3, which makes sense. Persona 3 has become an incredible step in the franchise. It would only make sense to build off the momentum and unique style it brought. Soon after, Persona 4 will be released in July of 2008 in Japan and December of the same year in North America. With that settled then, why don't we take a look at the story and what it has to offer? Wanna take the shot, Luna?
Sure thing.
Hey, wait, that camera's expensive!
Persona 4 takes place in Inaba, a rural Japanese town. You play as Yu Narukami, is that right? So, you play as Yu Narukami and stay over with your uncle, Ryotaro Dojima, and your cousin, Nanako, for a year. All seems well until you start hearing rumors about the Midnight Channel. It's stated that if you watch it while it rains at night, you'll meet your soulmate. This leads to Yu and his new classmates like Yosuke and Chie to check to see if this is even possible. In doing so, you eventually stumble across this new world inside your TV. During all this, there's also been a few murders around Inaba. It soon becomes up to Yu, Chie, Yosuke, Yukiko, and a few of the victims of this case to solve this mystery. Huh, this is actually a pretty nice concept. I don't know how to feel about you playing a game with death, though.
Anyhow, that's really all you need to know on the main plot. The thing about Persona 4 is that its story is a lot simpler compared to any other entry. You really just hang out with your friends while also solving these cases. It's a super cool yet silly concept that in execution is done fantastically, with one major flaw however. One major thing about writing a murder mystery is that you need to maintain suspense and wonder for the viewer, otherwise it'll just make it boring for them. Persona 4 really understands this well in the beginning. It sets you up with a sense of wonder and that eerie feeling when you go to the first dungeon with Yosuke. You've never seen these shadows, and once you're a few days in, you're really trying to see what connection lies to TV world and the murders, coming up with theories based on patterns and everything. And I will admit, the ending and finding out who was really behind it all was the best part. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a moment. Here's the thing though, it's somewhat predictable, for around the middle portion at least. You see, once you realize that people on the Midnight Channel get taken to a TV world, you go and save them. You do this by first getting some intel about the victim for Teddy, one of the people who live on this world, so he can find the location of the victim. Once you get through the dungeon and defeat all the enemies, you have to face off a shadow version of the victim. These are essentially a manifestation of their insecurities, and get stronger the more the person says they aren't. After defeating the shadow and having the victim admit that they are part of them, they turn into their own persona and eventually join you to solve the case. It isn't that big of a deal, we do get a slight variation after saving Rise, but this pattern does drag out for a bit too long. It stops being more of a murder mystery and instead just a matter of saving whoever appears on the TV next. Yukiko is on the Midnight Channel, bam, saved. Kanji appears, bam, saved. And it stays like this for half of the main group, but that's really my only gripe with it. Hey Luna, you can take it from here.
The whole message of being okay with your insecurities is really well done, thanks to the shadow versions of the characters. It gives a good representation of their past and the struggles they're going through. For example, Yosuke's shadow represents his distaste for living in Inaba and just working at Chuns. Not only that, we get to see him heavily grow throughout his social link, and by the end, he's perfectly content with where he is and appreciates you being his partner. Oh, and let's not forget Nanako. She loves calling you Big Bro, and she's just a sweetheart.
Speaking of which, P4's characters are, in my opinion, the best in the series. No, really, I will argue until the end of time that Persona 4 has the best cast of characters. Yes, some of them are borderline anime cliches, and this is where Atlas really started pushing for that anime style writing. But come on, there's a certain charm to it. You got Rise, who's this famous idol who decided to stop working for her manager due to how overwhelming her job can be, but after talking to Narukami, she learns to appreciate herself and becomes confident enough to come back to her role. We got Teddy, who plays as the comic relief in the cast, but he's so funny to watch. Some say he's annoying because of his voice, but how can you hate this dude? That's the thing I love about Persona 4. Despite having a pretty serious sounding concept for the plot, everything else just oozes a charm that you see in a slice of life anime. When you and the others aren't solving the case, they're just hanging out and having a good time, going to the beach, staying over at Yukiko's, and even playing a concert at a festival. I love moments like these, and they're scattered really well. I don't know, there's just that warm and fuzzy feeling that comes with playing Persona 4. It really feels like I'm part of this friend group and just having fun. Yes, you're trying to find a serial killer, but just have a good time in the countryside with your friends. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about the ending. So around the end of the in-game year, Yu receives a letter from the supposed killer. Dojima finds out about this and realizes that Yu is being involved in the case, during which this was played as a distraction, and I kid you not, Nanako is kidnapped and taken to the TV world. We go ahead and save her, stop the supposed killer, who is Naro Namatame. He was not behind the murders. He was just trying to, in his words, save them from the real killer by taking them to the TV world, meaning a lot of our friends like Yukiko and Rise were in fact there because of him. Sadly, Namatame did not know that the other world is where they could have actually died if it wasn't for Narukami. Not to mention, the group notices a lack of true motivation and honesty from Namatame, so they're back in square one. Upon further looking at the evidence and justifications on who was in charge of investigating the murders, there could only be one option left. Toru Adachi, the guy who was with Dojima the whole time and acting like a weirdo.
Wait, who?
Ah, right, sorry. So a bit of context. Dojima's a detective solving the murders around Inaba. Adachi is just his assistant who helps out and talks to the cast. Yes, it is true, the killer was right under our noses all along. Okay, in all seriousness, this was kind of a cool twist, I loved it. Adachi's just a dude who's trying to do well in life. How can this guy be behind several homicides in a small town? Either way, we gathered this info and immediately rushed to the TV world to find, what do you know, Adachi for one final confrontation. And I'll admit, this was a very symbolic moment. You see, there's actually a lot of depth behind Adachi. Think about it. This dude has gone through so much crap. He's often treated like an outcast, has had nobody to really talk to and be happy. Then he sees Narukami and all his friends having a great time together. That gives him envy and causes him to ruin the lives of others as a way of revenge. I'm not justifying his actions, but the fact his whole motivation and ideals stem from mental issues and isolation from others really makes him one of the most realistic feeling antagonists in the series. Persona 4 has a deeper and more complex villain than any of these guys here. I really mean it. It is shocking. He's definitely one of the more disturbing ones too, just because of how real people like Adachi do exist out there. But that's the thing, Adachi is a perfect example of how messed up a person can become. It's weirdly poetic in a sense for a game like Persona 4 to have this kind of message and representation, and I cannot stop appreciating it. After defeating Adachi and then the mighty god you need to face, Ameno Sagiri, Adachi agrees to turn himself in, and you hang out with the rest of the time with your friends. Sadly, this doesn't stay for long though. You say your goodbyes, you tell them you love them, and you go back to the city. Just wow. Let that sink in. What can I say that hasn't been said already? Persona 4 honestly has one of the best stories in this series. There's really something for everyone in this title, and there's a massive reason for why it's the most beloved entry in the series. With so many productions just looking into it, dissecting every single detail this game has to offer, you name it. Anyhow, why don't we get to a gameplay? Just a quick note, by the way, we're gonna base off our opinions on Persona 4 Golden, so we'll get into all this in a moment. Hey Luna, you're up now.
Persona 4 plays pretty similarly to what you'd expect from this entry. You're able to freely explore parts of the Inaba, hang out with your friends, build up on the new social links, fight enemies, and explore dungeons. What's most interesting here is what's been added. Let's start with the combat. For starters, you're now completely able to control your party members here. This is super useful, though if you wish, you do have the option to rely on AI for it. The dungeons have also changed, from Tartarus to now differently themed areas. They're still randomly generated rooms, but the small change in aesthetic really does help. The UI is also a complete 180 from what we've previously seen. They took a jab at this very colorful and yellow look, which is really nice to see. Some claim that Persona 5 was the big evolution on how its menus are stylized, but Persona 4 feels like the first to properly implement this art direction. Going through the different options are relatively simple with small animations, but the color palette and the small nods to CRTs is really nice. Not to mention, it gives P4 its own identity amongst the rest of the games. All-out attacks are a little cleaner, the art is gorgeous, and there's a handful of activities you can do, from reading, getting a job, to even traveling to other towns. You can even buy costumes for the characters, which is really nice. As a whole, this is more or less just what Persona 3 did, but heavily improved on. If anything, it's much closer to Persona 3 Portable, gameplay-wise, but just with the things that were removed from that version. Animated cutscenes, playable party members. Guess I could also mention some of the more minor things we've noticed. Shuffle time has been changed to be a lot easier to get boosts in Personas. That status mechanic is gone, there's less physical attacks you can do. And I think that's about it. Hey, Minty, I'll baton pass this next section to you.
Well, we're not reviewing Persona 5 yet, but alright. Remember how we said there's been days in Persona 3 where all you did was study, sleep, or do more karaoke? Well, screw that, now there's social links, quests, activities, and just being able to hang out with your friends. On top of that, your party members' social links have actual incentives to complete. Say goodbye to the irritating system of broken links, and say hello to new skills. Yes, if you level up a party member's social link, they unlock a new and more powerful skill. This is a massive improvement, and I'm all for it. Oh my gosh, the soundtrack. Of all the mainline titles, this is by far my absolute favorite OST. Heartbreak, Reach Out to the Truth, Pursuing My True Self, Time to Make History, all amazing and catchy songs. There's a huge emphasis on J-Rock, along with very upbeat tracks. It really adds to the whole cozy and warm feeling the game is going for. Pretty sure you guys are seeing a pattern in my music tastes, aren't you? That's not even mentioning how good the emotional tracks are. Snowflakes is easily a go-to in that department. Anime cutscenes are just as good. The UI in Golden, oh my god, the UI. Absolute favorite in the series, even more than 5. Call me insane, but when they do this whole 60s pop art style, it looks gorgeous. It's one of the main reasons I want to see a Persona 4 remake. What else is there? Ah shoot, we gotta do the Marie stuff, right? Alright, so, when Persona 4 Golden released, one of the biggest additions to the vanilla version was the inclusion of Marie. She's meant to be an assistant in training for Igor and Margaret. To get further info on the storyline, you have to max out her social link by December 3rd. If you don't, you lose access to her story and dungeon. Throughout her social link, Marie tries to figure out who she is. Yeah, she's helping in the Velvet Room, but she's not really an attendant. Soon after, we get revealed that she is Kusumi no Okami, a being in great power similar to Ameno Sagiri, and possesses the role to keep an eye to the real world and inform Ameno and Kunino Sagiri what people wish for. After defeating Ameno, the fog inside her passes over to Marie, which takes over her and tries to make her disappear from the world. So to combat this, she decides to go to the Hollow Forest to kill herself. Narukami and the others chase her through the forest to stop her. During this, you start hearing the voice of another god, Izanami, trying to escape Marie's body, and the fog that's possessing her. We fight Izanami in her true form and save Marie. After defeating her, things go back to normal. We find out that Marie was born as a wish shared by the people to protect humanity and fulfill the wish of the world, leaving her understanding her position and happy with who she is. What? Okay, I don't know if I misunderstood something or what just happened. Look, I like Marie, her design, and what she does. I just don't think this blends well into Persona 4's story. It's so out of left field and has nothing to do with the plot that it had. What is this thing about Marie being connected to the gods and all this stuff? It just doesn't make sense. I simply just don't like these arcs that have to do with the gods of these worlds. I care about the characters, not whatever this was.
Oh, calm down. It's just a game.
In terms of sales, it actually sold much better than the previous entries, selling over 193,000 units in its first week in Japan. Keep in mind that this game remained as a PS2 exclusive 2 years after the PS3 release. In total, it wound up to over 300,000 units in its lifetime. In North America, we don't have the exact numbers, but it's been stated that it remained on Amazon's top-selling PS2 game for 2 weeks. As for Golden on the beta, it went to sell around another 300,000 copies. And on top of that, in a groundbreaking surprise, the Steam version of Persona 4 Golden went on to sell for over 500,000 copies. Every time this game was released, not only did it went on to sell better, but is also regarded as one of the best games of all time, giving it 9 out of 10s or even 10 out of 10s. This, however, did cause a major shift in the series. While Persona 3 revolutionized the gameplay and style, Persona 4 was the point in which Atlus really started to notice the popularity of the franchise. So what did Atlus do? Easy. I even have a list here. Thanks to the success of Persona 4, we got a fighting game, 2 if you count Ultimax, a spin-off with its cast in the Persona 3 characters, 2 anime adaptations, a dancing rhythm spin-off, Teddy Socks, and so many more things with a Persona 4 name on it. This was all in the span of a couple of years. Just take that all in. And I get it, Persona 3 did the same. That thing received 4 anime movies. But the thing about Persona 4 is that the amount of milking has only gone much higher and higher. Oh, and just you wait until we get to 5. Now look, am I complaining about this? Absolutely not. Atlus can make a million P4 or P5 spin-offs, and so long as they're always quality and creative, I'll gladly buy them. Yeah, I said it. Atlus is a business after all. It makes sense to profit off from the success. Just treat this as a way to see what's to come in the future of the series. Not just with 5, but potentially with 6. To say Persona 4 had a lasting impact would be an absolute understatement. If you were to ask me which of these games I love the most, which I would consider my favorite, it would easily be 4 in a heartbeat. I love just about everything this game has to offer, from the writing, from the music. A lot of the greatest aspects of this franchise are inspired or took note from P4 one way or another. It's beautiful to see that this is the game that got me into the series. I never revealed the story, but I guess I should say it. Back when this game released on Steam, I was not in the best position. As many of you know, there was a shift in ownership in the company, not to mention all of the issues going on in the world at that time. So in a way, Persona 4 helped me get past that. Seeing these charming moments with the investigation team, actually being able to experience a true Persona game for the first time, it was all genuinely amazing. It's impossible to put into words how much this game has helped me push through those times, has made me a better person, and led me to the person I am today. There's a reason I have so much love and respect for Persona 4. It's the sole reason I even thought of creating Personathon. I just really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everyone who's watching this. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what this production means for the company, but one thing's for certain. I am not gonna stop making productions for you all. Tune in next time for Persona 5. This is Minty from Mintjoy Pictures.
Whew, that took longer than I thought. Kind of fun though. Maybe this was for the best. Akane, I finished. Akane?
Oh, hey, sweetie. Did you need something?
Well, I finished the footage, as you said. Is everything okay?
Sorry. Just look at this.
Minty. Wow, seems like he's better off now.
Don't worry about him, sweetie. You won't have to worry about him at all.
What do you mean by that?
Let's just say I plan on buying him out soon. After all, look at these reviews. At this rate, he won't have any way to make it back. Plus, what has Minty ever done to you to feel this attached? Just forget about that idiot.
Don't say that. I don't care if I can't work for him anymore, but don't you dare say that about him. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go. A host. I can try to help if you want. I may not be the best person to be on camera, but we can try that. Look, sir, I get that we're in a rough situation. We lost a lot of workers, but you can trust me. I'm sure I can make this company as good as it once was.
Nice sunset, don't you think?
Ah, where did you come from?
Just wanted to see if you'd notice. I'll admit, that was really fun. We should host more often. Want one?
Oh, thanks.
I heard the news about the production. Seems like people are trying to adjust to the changes.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Say, what was it like working with Akari? Never would have expected you to be this attached to someone like her.
Akari and I have been behind each other's backs since Dad passed away. She's one of the few people I can trust. She's always stayed by my side, and no matter what, she was willing to push herself for this place.
And don't you think there's a reason behind her decision?
I don't think so. All I did was tell her that she's gonna work a little more than she's used to. Dad did the same, and look how it turned out for him. What am I doing wrong? Am I just not meant to be in this position? Am I just not the kind of person who should be a leader? I should have focused on making connections than to be here.
Minty, I know you care for your father's business and want to do well. Just understand, you and your father, you don't want to go the same path he did. While your father did great things to this company, it cost him everything. His friends, his family, even his life. Do you not know how hard it is for me to see you do this? I don't want you to go down the same path as him.
Mom.
Don't worry, I'm fine. Despite all that, I'm sure your father's up there proud of both of you, wishing you and Akari the best. Just look at you, holding out for his business. That's all he ever wished for.
You really think so?
Of course. He always cared for you and just wanted you prepared. Even if Akari's not here, just keep up what you can and learn from this. I don't know what things she went through, but maybe this is just what she sees best for now. Only time will tell.
Yeah. Whatever happens, let's just hope she's okay. It's nice to have you here. Thanks, Mom.
Sweetie, feeling better now?
Are you here to fire me too?
No, of course not. I just want to talk.
What do you want then?
You said how Minty helped you be here. What did you mean by that?
I was born just when my mom was 16. She suffered a very stressful life, but her boyfriend always helped her and both promised to take care of me no matter what. It's all going pretty okay. I lived a pretty stable life and learned a lot thanks to my parents. Everything was great until that day.
What do you mean she was never my child? Why did you lie to me all this time?
I'm really sorry, I swear. But I didn't want to lose you. Oh, you and Akari got along so well. I didn't want you to leave her.
Well, look what you made me do. I spent all my resources on you when I could have been investing my time in my new company. You know what? I'm done.
Wait, where are you? Hey, honey. really sorry you had to see all that. I always mean it. I tried my best to get a job to buy you this. I hope you can forgive me.
My mom and I were so reliant on her boyfriend that it cost us everything. Mom? Mom, please wake up. Mom? I didn't know what to do. I was all alone, in the cold and with no food. Somehow there was one thing still keeping me alive. Hi. You see this? I think you should actually get this system. Here's why. I don't know what it was, but so many people liked hearing my thoughts on the game industry. Soon after, a lot of the residents started supporting me. I was being fed, given clothes, even got a bit of money. And soon that's when he came.
Good afternoon. The name's Minty Leafston. I am the new CEO of Mint Corporations. I'm pretty sure you have heard of it before. I noticed you gathered quite the attention and seem like you need some financial aid. I really see a lot of potential in you and think we can both benefit from a small deal. We can discuss this further in my office. Sound good?
It would be an honor, sir. My name's Akarioi. I'll do whatever it takes to make you proud.
Good. Now then, pack your stuff and follow me.
Right. He did so much for me and got me to who I am now. Made some of the best memories of my life. The only reason I took your offer was because I was scared. I didn't want to lose what I just worked so hard for. But now I've lost something far worse.
Wow. I'm sorry. I never thought you had to go through all that. But to be able to spend little but sweet moments like those with your parents, you're quite the fortunate girl.
Well, that's all gone. Bet you never had it rough, did you?
Everyone thinks that of us. You're not the only one with family issues, you know.
Never thought I'd be hearing that from you. You're always so calm, yet after all the things you did. Don't you feel anything?
As my father always said, we all fight for ourselves. Why waste our time trying to help others if they end up making mistakes? All they're going to do is get in our way. That's the only way we will stay on top.
You know, you're right. Maybe your dad has a point. But you only say that since you have the option to. If there's anything I learned from this, it's that no amount of money will fix the damage you've done. I hope you're happy.
Sweetie.
It doesn't matter, though. Sorry for earlier. I'll get back to work. This is Rabbit from Pepper Productions.
Welcome back, my darlings. Missed me?
This game has gotten one of the loudest and scariest fandoms. Of all times, this was the scene that actually made me cry. So let's get on to why I used to hate this game.
Welcome back, my darlings. Missed me? Today, we're back with a simple but fun production for you all. I'm your host for today, Sakura. This isn't usually my kind of topic to touch on, but I am grateful to bring you a production on a game many of you have heard of. Care to explain to them, sweetie?
Yes, if you've been following, I am very into the Persona series. It seems like I am finally giving a look at the series entry that led to its mainstream popularity. The thing about P5 is that it's still having a major influence to this day to new games and other projects. Not to mention the development hell, the simple yet really deep narrative, the countless reactions, praises, riots, and anything else you can name. It's all happened with this game. This is not only going to be one of the longest, most ambitious productions yet, it just might also be the most fundamentally different one I've ever had to make.
What nicer way than to accompany us for it, then? This is Sakura.
And Rabbit.
And this is Under the Mask. So, Persona 5's development was quite a lengthy one, taking almost a decade from concept to final release. But why was this? Let's start from the beginning. So Persona 4 just released. Katsura Hoshino, the director of Persona 3 and 4, has just started brainstorming for ideas on the next title. His plan was a little bit different this time. He wanted to take 5 with a focus on gentlemen thieves. For those of you who don't know, a gentleman thief is a character trope in fiction, referring to one born wealthy but is an expert at stealing. These kinds of characters are known to be taking from the rich while also maintaining their manners and fancy image. Oh, good taste, I must say. It seemed that Hoshino really wanted to push this idea, even going as far as to call it Persona the Third during its planning phase. During this time, there wasn't much going on other than just writing down some ideas. It was until 2009, however, since Persona 5 planned to be the most ambitious entry yet, they decided to make Catherine.
This was to test how life-size models would work, HD game development, and even test out their new in-house proprietary engine. Not everyone on the team was working on it though. For the rest, they just had to work with what they knew and get to the exact vision Hoshino asked for. Keep in mind that more than half of Atlus entirely had other projects during this time too. They were just hot off their heels with Persona 4, so they were working on projects like spin-offs and soon as re-release and a ton of other non-Persona titles.
See, sweetie? This is why you never rely on one or two people at your workspace. Anyways, active development didn't actually begin until 2011, right after Catherine eventually released. To be fair, this was easily a very good time for P Studio to experiment with whatever they had in mind.
And hey, Catherine turned out to be a favorite for many Atlus fans. Oh, that reminds me, I haven't even mentioned what ideas were actually thrown for P5. Despite the Persona series being known to be turn-based, it actually was planned to be a real-time action game. The likes of hack and slash, for example. This was somewhat scrapped, because in a sense you can still feel a sense of small action set pieces in its combat. On top of this, there was also the idea of adding in completely original layouts for dungeons. This was a welcomed addition, since basically every Persona game before 5 just consisted of randomly generated areas to explore. JRPGs and other games for a long time, even before Persona 4's release, have already been doing this, so it's perfect to give this a try. A lot of these dungeons, soon to be called palaces, took inspiration from different parts of the world. Heck, we even got back some long-abandoned mechanics. Persona 1 had a demon negotiation system where you talk to the shadows to make them part of your team. In 5, that's completely brought back. And fun fact, the little animation the Phantom Thieves make when talking to a demon was inspired from many action movies, with the characters pointing their guns at the enemy like they're in a crime scene. And for this last one, I cannot go without mentioning it. Persona 5 was originally meant to be set around the world, with characters going to different countries to stop these new antagonists and/or obstacles. This was a really cool idea, but due to the tsunami that happened around 2011, it was scrapped and replaced to be only set in Japan.
Yes. Dark times.
So with a few years of development behind them and P Studio being a little more confident with progress, we finally got our first ever teaser, the infamous ball and chain announcement. The reaction this got was odd, to say the least. On one hand, yes, we did get confirmed a new entry, but on the other, not only was Atlus just pumping out new Persona games on a yearly basis, this teaser had absolutely nothing to show. All it said was that it was releasing for winter of 2014 for the PS3. Little did we know that this was far from the truth. Back in December of 2014, in a Sony press conference and Tokyo Game Show, we did actually get our first official trailer with some stunning animation. However, the game got delayed, starting its release in just 2015. No month, no season, just the year. Let's look on the bright side, though. The game's at least coming to the PS4 now. It was actually the main reason it got delayed, according to Hoshino. This was easily the best time to have one, then. Can't wait till we get this in 2015. Okay. So, even though we did actually get our first gameplay trailer, which actually has a ton of differences to the final products, it was also said that it was further delayed to late 2016. This is 8 years in since they started conceptualizing the project and briefly mentioned it publicly. I couldn't find any reasoning for it, but I guess it's just to give that extra polish. Fortunately, the game did release eventually, but only in Japan. Persona 5 finally released on September 15th, 2016. It was a massive deal. There was a 20th anniversary collection for it, DLC, and a lot of fancy merchandise for it. So that leaves us with the question, what about the West? This game has come to North America eventually, so when was that? Thankfully, it was confirmed later on that Persona 5 will be coming to the West on February 14th, 2017.
Guess you could say Atlus wanted to steal our hearts. Huh, sweetie? Aw, cheer up from time to time.
But this is great. After almost a decade of waiting, we finally get to play Persona 5 in all its glory. We just have to wait a few more months and then we can play it. I am starting to believe that Atlus just hates us. Don't worry, the game did come out eventually. The reason why it was delayed this time was supposedly they wanted to add more English voice acting or something along those lines. Whatever the case was, and even though I've been very negative on the delays, I really do appreciate how Atlus took their time. I'd even go as far as to say it was worth it. Why don't we get to the story now? Sakura, I am passing you the baton now.
With pleasure. Our story takes hold on this fancy casino here. You play as this handsome one, named Joker, stealing what others claim to be a treasure. Ooh, quite fascinating so far. As you escape from the scene, you're caught from some guards and are taken into custody. While all hope was lost, a defendant under the name Sai Nijima takes care of the situation and tries to uncover your true motivation. Once you start to speak from your past, that's when the narrative truly begins. For a bit of background, you play as Ren Amamiya. He's been brought to Shibuya after getting into a confrontation between two other adults, causing Ren to be under probation for a year so he can be deemed as innocent. While you try to redeem yourself by staying out of shady business, you make some new friends while also forming the Phantom Thieves, a group where you travel to a different world called the Metaverse to change the hearts of evil adults to confess for their crimes.
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of the main narrative. There's no real need for a true introduction or deep explanation as to how it works. At its core, Persona 5's story is, to be blunt, nothing special. It's just a typical younger generation rebelling against their elders kind of story. What makes it stand out, however, is the execution. Let's start with this whole metaverse concept. The way it works is whoever the person you're going after is the ruler of this world you visit. The world is also known as a palace. Palaces are, in simple terms, a recreation of how said ruler sees himself. Let's take Kamoshida for example, the first of these rulers you face. For context, Kamoshida is a very well-respected teacher in the school, but behind the scenes he's been accused of abusing his students and doing certain things I don't feel comfortable saying. You could say in a way that he's acting like the school is his castle. In the palace, this is only further shown but to a much more literal degree, with Kamoshida eventually being a king and showing instances of how he treats the same people you see on campus, all but in a much harsher way. This kind of symbolism and theming stays throughout each of the palaces. As mentioned, Kamoshida likes to see himself as a king. We also have Okumura, a CEO of a company who overworks his employees, utilizes robots that barely have a minute for a lunch break. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned mementos. You see, while we do get to explore areas centered around one person, that only happens because their grief and inner desires are just that powerful. Mementos plays as a palace, but for the public, letting you find more people with these distorted thoughts, but on a much smaller scale. I might make this story seem super hard to understand, but believe me, the game has no issue explaining how it works, and it's very well done. By the second to third palace, you really start to get a feel for the metaverse, which is quite funny because there is one particular palace that subverts your expectations. Alright, I'll go over it. Okay, so during this whole journey of taking down criminals, the Phantom Thieves start getting massive traction online, which soon leads to an anonymous group of so-called hackers named Medjed threatening to reveal their true identities to the public. A person called Alibaba is willing to help out the group if they change a person's heart, in this case being Futaba Sakura, a girl who's been traumatized because she thinks she killed her mother. You can see the kind of changes made compared to our previous rulers. For one, Futaba isn't exactly a bad person. Her desires aren't made because she wants to hurt people. She just wants to be mentally well and see the reality and who was the one behind her mom's death. Heck, this entire palace and arc Futaba went through feels very reminiscent of Persona 4. Futaba even goes inside her own palace and talks to the Shadow to realize the truth. I mean, come on, it's certainly better than just one big bad CEO number 42 in my opinion. But that's enough of the villains. How does one even become a Phantom Thief, you ask? Well, as you can see, they kind of need to rebel against whoever they personally oppose. Ryuji defends himself against Kamoshida, Yusuke stops listening to Madarame, Haru quits accepting her dad's orders, and so on. The entire idea of a Phantom Thief is to show them that you will fight for your own beliefs and morals. And by stealing a heart, you're removing the desires that this person has, making them feel useless without confessing for their crimes. Now, do keep in mind that is a double-edged sword. I say this because after we defeat Okumura and take his heart, he gets killed by a certain someone. This makes the Okumura in the real world actually die as well. And trust me, this soon becomes a new point for the game. Up until the point that I've been talking about, your only priority was not getting in trouble and having the people you target confess. The Phantom Thieves by this point are basically celebrities to not only a national, but global scale. After Okumura's death, however, the backlash immediately begins after the group is framed for it. Okay, and side note, I just really want to say this. Atlas completely predicted cancel culture and just how destructive it really is. Think about it. Voicing your opinion to the point that either A, it makes a person completely confess for their actions, or B, completely destroy their career and hard work forever. The amount of similarities Persona 5 has to our world just a few years later is scary. And yes, P5 of all games, I feel, is one of the main contributors to this kind of idea. Not to mention this whole meta-commentary of revolting against your elders considering they're part of a 1% of the population who are in complete power over you, and your friends are just cogs in a machine we call society that only exists to make us believe we can actually do good in life, while in reality we just have no choice but to listen and live tragic lives and suffer harsh consequences if we decide to revolt. Yes, Persona 5 did this, and is one of the main reasons I am legitimately scared of it. So after the Phantom Thieves get framed for it, it actually does get a lot more interesting. I won't try to go over everything, but to give you an idea, you basically team up with this guy named Koro Akechi to find the culprit behind Okamura's death. Turns out, he was it all along. So that was a nice twist. So now we just have to take him down, and our last target, Shido, a politician who wants to bring down the country. Well, after defeating him, you do the whole fighting a god thing, and society is helping you, and so on and so forth, and whatever. I have to be honest, and I'll say it once again, these parts of Persona are the least appealing to me. Alright, so what are my overall thoughts then? Well, this is a pretty good story. Great characters, simple yet very interesting world building, and lots of action. Ryuji is single-handedly my favorite of the cast. He's always very energetic, outgoing, and while he causes a bit of trouble for others, he just wants to do what's right. You meet him right as you applied for your new school, so once the teachers see you're hanging out with him, that's already a red flag for them. There's also Yusuke, a young and humble artist whose talent was used to give more clout for his teacher. Once you help him and get to see what Yusuke is all about, you can really see how passionate he is for his art, and always strives to create a piece with a very deep meaning. Sure, this cast isn't as exciting or as fun as Persona 4's, but what's here is really well done, and I'm genuinely surprised at how fun it was to just relive these moments again. The pacing can be all over the place though, and that's probably my biggest gripe with it. You see, unlike Persona 3 and 4, and heck, maybe the ones prior to those, at least they always had a very straight-to-the-point beginning. They give you enough context for what's going on, but they never drag a tutorial. Well, I hope you like a long and slow beginning, because P5 is guilty of that. I'm not kidding. It takes a good 20 to 30 hours to finally stop being told about new mechanics and things you can do. Now I know, Persona 5 mechanically is a lot more ambitious compared to what we've been used to. With the game wanting to do some in-depth world building and bringing in new mechanics like guns and demon negotiation, it makes sense to do this. My issue is that a lot of this stuff didn't need to take so long. You're constantly stopped to be told the new move you can do, hear the characters get all excited about how cool you looked, and proceed. This just makes it really hard to replay P5 when you already know all of the systems. And don't worry, this isn't just regarding the start of a playthrough. You also get pretty out-of-nowhere scenes. For example, after you save Futaba, you all decide to go to the beach to have some fun. That's fine. However, once you come back to school a few days after that, you all go to Hawaii. Why are we all heading to another beach scene right after one we just had? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this trip was never mentioned until right before you came back to class. So it all just happens out of nowhere. I guess I will admit that Kasumi appearing with you in Royal was kind of cute. Oh, and don't worry, I didn't forget about P5R. We'll get to that later. And I guess I should also mention the infamous scene most people hate. Ryuji and Morgana's argument. Now, look, I get it. Ryuji's quite a prick here, and Morgana has probably been annoying to the majority of the audience. Hence why I dislike him here. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't actually like this scene. For context, basically up until this point, the Phantom Thieves have been very popular with the media, so Ryuji's ego has skyrocketed and wants to steal more hearts. However, Morgana calls him and the team out on this, so he decides to take down Okamura, our target, by himself. And yeah, I can understand how this brings the main story to a halt, but it does bring a very interesting point on the character's motivation and just gives the team a little more development, especially with Morgana. He started off as introducing you to the metaverse and how it works, only to be shafted over time and even more with Futaba being the brains of the team. So in a weird way, it calls out a big issue with Morgana while developing him. So yeah, in all honesty, Persona 5's story really isn't all that bad. It's a bit simple in concept, yes, but the way that they execute a lot of its main characters, not to mention the middle portion of it, is really well written too. What better time than now to get into the gameplay? Sakura, mind explaining the gameplay for me?
Oh, alright. Persona 5 plays pretty similarly to its contemporaries. You control as the lead, sprint around the different locations, purchase items, battle demons, and a couple of other activities. And if you've been familiar with this series, there's still the social links, now titled as Confidants. Although, there certainly are a handful of improvements and additions to this system. Let's start with the presentation. As you can see, a numerous amount of the design elements have been greatly improved, such as the on-screen menu, cues for doing damage, and a lot of other things throughout your playthrough. In my personal opinion, this is rather fascinating. And as you can see, we did take a bit of inspiration from the game. Not only do these cute animations communicate well with the user, it also makes the game heavily stand out. Just look at how gorgeous they made the all-out attacks. Aside from that, we get to negotiate with demons, as Rabbit clarified earlier. Where this game really stands out from the rest is its theming. Kiss goodbye to those simple dungeons and say hello to uniquely designed ones. This doesn't mention the fact that there's an emphasis on stealth here, needing to conceal from enemies by using the environment and this meter, clarifying how many are aware of your presence. If you decide to be reckless and fill that gauge, you immediately get kicked out from the palace. It seems like this is everything. Anything you want to add, sweetie?
Well, there are some things. On top of visiting these places and taking down the rulers, you do also get to visit mementos. Think of this as just a simpler version of Tartarus from Persona 3. Randomly generated floors for you to explore, get items, and fight enemies from the previous dungeons. This works really well as just a way to grind if you finished a palace and have a lot of free time in your hands. Sometimes the game will even request you to change the heart of someone through mementos. In general, there's not much that I can say that's wrong with the gameplay. Sure, there are some issues with how much you can truly explore the dungeons and how limited your time can be, but thankfully a lot of true criticisms were fixed in its re-release, Persona 5 Royal, which, I guess, is a good time now to talk about it. For a bit of context, with Persona 5 being Persona 5, it would only be a matter of time until we get a definitive edition, and so we did. Teased around early 2019, fully revealed in E3 of the same year, and finally released in these respective dates. Here's just a simple idea of what they added. New menu screen, new palace, new locations, new confidants, more character development, new weapons, new costumes, and more DLC to empty any leftover sayings you have. So let's go over these things in more detail. One of the biggest additions to the combat system is the new Showtime attack. These are essentially just one massive and stylish blow between characters, like Morgana and Anne fighting together as Morgana just pulls out a cartoon bomb and Yusuke and Ryuji having lunch until an enemy disturbs them, making them team against it. These are super nice to look at and do incredible damage if you use them on the right enemies. They mostly come at random though, meaning you can't really plan these out, though they appear pretty often as you explore the palaces. Another big addition is Jose, a being who travels around mementos for flowers. They don't really establish who he is or why he needs so many flowers, but you can trade them in with him to get boosts and items to use in the metaverse. Last but not least, in main gameplay, there's also will seeds. These are, in simple terms, just a nice collectible you can find hidden in all palaces. Getting all 3 per palace will give you some really powerful accessories, so it's nice having these. Oh, and there's also the Thieves' Den. This is completely outside the game, but really cool regardless. As you progress and do certain challenges, you'll get what are called P medals. You can buy things like statues to place in the area, music, concept art, and cutscenes of the game. I really am a big fan of this kind of stuff, and it's super nice to see it in Royal. It just makes the game feel that more definitive and that the team really enjoyed developing it. But, alright, I know what you're all waiting for. Let's get into the palace and the confidants. Persona 5 Royal added 2 new characters, Maruki and Kasumi. Kasumi is a new classmate you stumble across, just a very cheerful and nice person who does gymnastics. As for Maruki, he's a bit of a therapist or a psychiatrist who asks for your help to do a little personal project of his. However, once you max out both of their confidants before a specific date, that's when you unlock the new semester. The story for it is pretty simple. It is now the new year and you defeated Shido. However, things aren't looking the same as you remember. Morgana is apparently now a human, and Futaba's mom is alive? Wasn't it established that, So this makes Ren, or you, the protagonist, go to your friends and see what's going on. Apparently all of them have gone back to their old selves. What I mean is, any character development you've done through the confidants, gone. Just pretend like it never happened, because that's exactly what's going on. And also the fact that Morgana is still a human. And the fact that Akechi is still alive. What? Akechi's back? The last time this happened, yeah, things are really weird now. It's at this point that you, Akechi, and soon Kasumi, who joins you, try to find out what happened. To keep a long story short, I'll just say this. Remember Maruki? Yeah, since you helped him with this project he was doing, it all came to fruition. That is, creating a reality where everyone is happy and all of their problems are erased. This only becomes more apparent when we find out a dark truth about Kasumi, or should I say, Sumire. You see, Sumire was just a typical shy girl, but after a horrible accident and her sister named Kasumi sacrificed herself to save her, she was traumatized, and in order to cope with this and forget that this ever happened, she became Kasumi. She spoke like her, dressed like her, heck, she used the same hairstyle as her. This was one of the main reasons Maruki made this world and was very understanding of Sumire. Akechi, however, was completely against it. He saw this as a method of brainwashing and messing with reality as if he was an almighty god. Even if that meant he could actually live, it just becomes this very complicated and philosophical debate of hiding your issues for happiness, or dealing with it and always having that pain present in your head. Like, holy...
Sweetie!
Sorry, I got a bit excited.
You're lucky we have editors.
As I was saying, Persona has always been a very solid series with its writing, but this is a whole new level. The characters here genuinely feel amazing. They're already established, so you know how they behave, so at this point they truly play around with this just very dark and heartbreaking reality. Sumire's whole idea of wanting to be the person who sacrificed herself for her sister is incredibly disturbing, but weirdly ironic. Up until now, we got to learn so much about what we thought was Kasumi, a very cheerful girl who just wants to be good at what she is. But now that all of that is completely thrown out the window, but in a way I could never imagine. Of all times, this was the scene that actually made me cry. It was that emotionally heavy for me, and I wish I were lying to you. Well, after all that, you and the now returned to normal Phantom Thieves decide to take down Maruki once and for all before this new reality becomes permanent to the world. However, as the thieves explore this new palace, it's also here that you actually see some true development on Maruki as well. Wait, more character development? Like, actual motivations, unlike Big Bad CEO number 42? That's it. Persona 5 Royal, best game of all time. 10 out of 10 will recommend. Pack it up, boys, we're out. But yes, there's a real reason behind Maruki's motives. You see, Maruki has been researching mementos and cognitive science for a long time now. He did this because he wanted to help his girlfriend after being severely traumatized to the point she can't even talk. However, in helping it would mean that she would never remember him, ultimately sacrificing her memories of them together just for her happiness. Maruki just slowly falls into this idea of continuing his research to keep people happy. However, that's what he thinks. To Akechi and soon the Phantom Thieves, this is a manipulation of their lives. Even if he has good intentions, it does not deny how dystopian and horrifying it really sounds. Just, wow. Maruki is without a doubt one of the best, no, the best antagonist in the series. This doesn't even mention the final battle you have with him. Sure, it's not much of a true boss fight, more so just a very fun action set piece at the end, but come on. How can you not love this? But anyway, once you defeat Maruki, everything's back to normal. You have one last trip with your friends and... Maruki? Huh, small world, isn't it? Well, yeah, you just hang out with your friends one last time before heading home. And that was Persona 5 Royal, and 5 to an extent. If 5 was a really well-baked cookie, Royal is one of the most delicious cookies I've ever eaten. There's so much to love here. I might even say the new semester brings some of the best the franchise has ever come up with. Sure, the whole idea of regressing the characters back to themselves when you meet them is a cheap conflict, but you can't deny how excellently written the inclusion of Maruki and Sumire is. They absolutely steal the show and left me so curious as to what happens next. Whatever the case is, all I can say is Persona 5 Royal easily reminded me of what made this series so good. So let's get on to why I used to hate this game. Persona 5 released on the dates you see here, and how did it do? Yeah, saying this game performed really well would be a massive understatement. It exploded all the way to the mainstream popularity, selling well over 3 million copies in total and currently being Atlus's best-selling game of all time. And as for fans and critics, they just ate this up. So what's wrong with this? Shouldn't I be proud that this game did so great? Well, while Persona 5 did do really well, it also sparked a major debate. Is Persona 5 being milked too much? This is going to be a bit of my death wish.
Which is why I brought in someone special to be here. Why don't we bring our special guest here? Care to explain?
At times, Atlus can feel like the dad that went to the store for milk, only he actually came back with it and then proceeded to go buy a new carton every single day for the next 5 years, but you only ever drink 1 or 2 glasses a week. Okay, they're not that bad, but still, for the last decade, Atlus has been experts at milking the Persona franchise, and frankly, I can't fully blame them. Not only is it just good business sense to find different ways to double down on your successes, but seeing as they almost went out of business around the time this started, I can imagine there's some level of financial PTSD they're trying to avoid triggering. Upon release, Persona 5 was beloved by basically everyone who played it, all while being able to grab the attention of people who had never even heard of Atlus, let alone played one of their games. This game slingshotted the company to stardom and made them a name in the somewhat mainstream gaming zeitgeist. Again, from a business perspective, it makes complete sense to cash in on the success, as it would not only bring in more money, but it would keep the company in the mouths of this new audience they found themselves with. Cameos, collabs, and anime adaptations, spin-offs, sequels, everything to keep people thinking about that nifty RPG from 6 years ago. However, it's also resulted in a new problem: overexposure. Prior to the game's release, Atlus was becoming infamous within its own fanbase for how much they milked the prior number game in the series, P4. A fighting game, a dancing game, an enhanced re-release, and not one, but 2 anime adaptations that were barely any different from each other. While it was all well received, except for that second anime, people were growing tired of Persona 4 and were desperate for what came next. Now, years after that first thirst was quenched, the desperation has been renewed for many diehard fans, and arguably is worse than it was the first time. And sadly, there looks to be no end in sight beyond mere speculation. As time has gone on, Joker and the Phantom Thieves appearing in games went from producing cheers to groans. They were everywhere, and the novelty of them was worn off. What draw they had was greatly diminished and has resulted in indifference towards new ventures. The upcoming release of Persona 5 Tactica, the newest spin-off in this sub-franchise, has seen little excitement online, especially when compared to the remake of Persona 3 that was announced at the same time. This isn't to say the game looks bad or will be bad, but rather it's an observation of how the Atlus fanbase is growing tired of the constant abuse of the IP. Personally, one of my biggest problems with this milking has been how Atlus has failed to use the success of this game in a way to grow the entire company's portfolio. While they have tried to use the success of P5 to bolster and draw attention to other releases, these attempts are nothing but one-trick ponies. They put the main cast of that game in the Phantom Thieves outfit, because somehow that's supposed to be enough to get people interested in the game. It's gotten to the point where it feels like the equivalent of Atlus jangling keys in our face. While I don't have hard numbers, I feel confident in saying these crossovers just don't work. The only game to have gained massive success relative to the size of its series is Shin Megami Tensei 5, and that game didn't have any crossover with P5. Rather, that game was promoted on its own merits and the success of its own series, and ended up being the best-selling game in that franchise. Not to mention, its marketing campaign was arguably the second biggest Atlus had done since 2017. But that's just one game out of all of the ones Atlus has made in the last 6 years. It makes things like putting Ringo in Joker's outfit feel like a half-assed replacement for genuine push. If they wanted to use the success of P5 to promote their other games, it feels like they don't actually understand what they're doing. Instead, they just slap P5 on it and tell people about it, thinking that's enough. While I'm sure the next mainline entry in the Persona series is coming in the next few years, I don't know if the Persona 5 brand can keep fans preoccupied that much longer. While Persona 5 Strikers and Persona 5 Royal are well liked, the P5 anime has been criticized for its poor adaptation and stupidly drawn out length. Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight is generally agreed to be the worst Atlus game of the last decade. Persona 5 The Phantom X has more people talking about a brand new MILF character as opposed to anything else with it. And Persona 5 Tactica, again, has little to no discussion beyond a basic, oh yeah, it looks cool, in the lead up to its release. It feels like the only thing that could actually get people excited about a new Persona 5 project would be a new arena game, but the likelihood of one of those happening seems to diminish with every passing day. The thing is, it still works. While a bunch of Western fans might be getting tired, these collabs keep happening. Anything labeled P5 still sells. We always got to remember that the complaints online, even if they seem to be the majority, don't always represent what's actually going on within the fandom. Diehard Atlus fans could be growing tired of Persona 5, but so long as the mainstream isn't, it's going to keep happening. The best we can really do is make our voices heard while we grin and bear it. P6 will be here someday. We're just gonna have to deal with Atlus constantly shoving Joker in our faces, acting like it's something to be excited about until then.
Wait, is that who I think it is? Since when did you bring him on?
Trust me, sweetie. A few connections can go a long way.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, if I had to give my own thoughts on this, well, yes, Atlus is going a bit overboard with the amount of spin-offs with P5. It is making Atlus become very experimental with genres we've never seen before. Who would have thought the same people who make JRPGs made a hack-and-slash fighting game, dance rhythm game, a mobile game that looks just as good as the main ones, and an SRPG? It's a great way to see them try out new ideas and how they can fit in with the P5 aesthetic and mechanics, for better and for worse. Look, I don't tend to talk about fan reception and memes, but you cannot make a P5 production without mentioning it. This game has gotten one of the loudest and scariest fandoms. Combine that with how earlier we mentioned he got into a Smash, that alone made his popularity skyrocket to the moon. Remember the whole break-free Persona movement? For those who don't remember, back in early 2020, many fans absolutely screamed at Atlus to post the games. They sent videos, bombarded their social media platforms, and outright harassed the developers for it. Like, guys, look, I love Persona 5, and I was on the side that wanted the games ported. But it's stuff like this that disgusts me to see, and it's for the same reason that many simply just hate the game and its community. I would never condone anyone doing this, not even on my most wished games. It's incredibly sad how this game has built its reputation so well, only to be demolished by the people who are so desperate to want to play it. But hey, I guess that's just simply what happens when you have a large and diverse enough fandom. Whatever the case is, it's no denying that Persona 5 truly had a massive impact on our lives, and it will always be known for it. You know, of all the games in the Persona series, Persona 5 truly is a very different beast. Not only is it the most ambitious, the most unique, the most stylish in this series yet, but it's also the most controversial, the most milked, and the most despised currently. Honestly, that's what made this game so much fun to me. Getting to experience this wild roller coaster of emotions was a treat. Getting to know these simple but great characters, the masterpiece that was Royal, and the chaos that happened because of the people who played it, it will all always have such a special place in my heart. Persona 5 might not be for everyone. Maybe you miss the good old days of 3 and 4. Heck, maybe you miss the first 2 Persona games. But as much as we can love and hate this title, let's just hope Atlus learns from all this and makes Persona 6 another great entry to the series. And not have Big Bad CEO number 43. This is Rabbit!
And Sakura.
From Pepper Productions.
Welcome to 99 News. Today we have a very special guest on our show. It's been almost a week since the two capitalist empires released their latest production. To get more insight into their plans, we brought the Pepper Co.'s CEO, Akane. So, tell us, Ms. Kage, what were your thoughts on Dawn Okawa's performance?
I'm glad you asked. I actually know Miss Okawa from her store, Urban Madison. Great clothing, by the way. You should all really check her out. As for her performance, very impressive, but can easily be better. I'd say working with a better written script could really make her shine.
I see. And what about the future of your productions? Do you plan to further work with Akari?
There's not much I can't comment on. All I can say is, I'll keep you all updated on any news.
What does she mean?
Oof, what a long day. Oh, I see you're still watching it. Here you go. Your work here is done.
Done? What are you talking about? What do you mean I'm done? Did I do something wrong?
You didn't, sweetie. Let's just say that plans didn't go as I wanted, so I'll just send you back with Minty.
Well, what are you going to do about Minty? Didn't you say you wanted to buy him out?
Well, it's best not to do anything at the end. He is the one making this industry fun. In any case, I'll be back. Good luck, sweetie.
Thank you. It's been nice while it lasted, to be honest.
What do you mean you're done helping? I thought we had a deal.
Sorry, honey, but if you couldn't tell by the noise, there's people flooding in my store right now. Who knew Akane would even put us in the spotlight?
But you promised you'd help me.
I did. Temporarily. You know what they say, hon. Time is money. Don't worry. I'll see if I can send over someone to take my spot. Anyways, call you later. Bye.
Ah, you gotta be kidding me. Yes, who is it?
Good afternoon, sir. Is everything okay?
Akari? I mean, what do you want? I thought you were enjoying it with Akane.
Please, sir, I want to talk.
What do you want?
I know you don't want me here. I know what I did is near unforgivable, but I still want to help you. I still remember when we met. From the day I got my first script, to seeing us in our first production. It's hard to imagine a world without either of us here. What I'm trying to say is, I'm sorry for leaving. Looking back at all we've done with this company, there's not going to be anyone I'd love to work with more than you. I wouldn't want to change that.
Don't be. I should be sorry. I just really wanted this to be one of the best productions yet. But well, it really made me forget what's most important. What do you say? You win?
It'd be a pleasure to be back. Tell me, sir, is there anything you have for me then? I might have an idea.
Well, we finished all the reviews. However, there is one more game we can check out.
Oh, hey! I didn't see you there. Nice to see you. I'm just enjoying some fresh air. You know, this new job isn't half bad. I get to meet new people, use top-of-the-line equipment, and best of all, I get paid vacation. Screw that! Our competitors may have more than us, but it's good to be back! This is Bunny, and you're watching the grand finale of Personathon.
Alright, I know what you're thinking. Minty, why is this a finale? Wasn't that the Persona 5 review? Well,
shut the up!
Yeah, in a way it was. However, I am happy to make this very special episode to really wrap things up once and for all. You see, with the release of Persona 5 Tactica on the way, let's take a look back into one of Atlus's truest attempts into making a fully fleshed out P5 spin-off. And what better way to do it than to bring in a special guest with us. Give it up for our beloved host, Akari Aoi.
Sir, I thought we went by code names. Anyway, to conclude this roller coaster of a series, we decided to bring a review on what might just be one of my favorite games of the Persona series, Persona 5 Strikers. Now, this game... oh dear. Of all the titles we've seen, this will probably be one of the hardest I have to talk about. Not because of how ambitious or grand it was for the series, but rather because of my history with it, and the one it's had with its fans. That said, I am more than happy to say that this game is a game I hold very fondly, and with a lot of praise. And that's what this production is about. You all know the drill, so let's get into its development. Captain?
The year is 2016. Persona 5 just released and all this happened. So immediately after its release, the team set out to make a brand new Persona 5 project. Codenamed P5S, this was going to be a warrior-styled game, also known as Musu. It's basically a gameplay style where it involves hundreds of enemies on the screen and you have to take them down with various combos. This is a gameplay system heavily utilized by Koei Tecmo and has been used in several titles of theirs and even brought onto other franchises like The Legend of Zelda and Fire Emblem. And that was kind of the goal of this new project. This will be co-developed with Koei Tecmo, and we soon get a teaser for it around 2018, more trailers on 2019, and released on these respective dates. And that's about it, really. However, there's a bit I want to share about from the lead up to its release. You see, around the same time P5S was announced, Joker was revealed to be in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This led many to believe that we would actually get Persona 5 on the Nintendo Switch. With P5S being announced, many thought the game would actually be ported to the system. Once Strikers got its first official reveal, let's just say this started a downward spiral within the community, and ultimately left a huge amount of hate for the game itself, with tons of Switch fans dislike bombing the trailer and voicing their thoughts on the matter. Before I continue, can I just say that in hindsight, this was a really stupid rumor? Think about it. Persona 5 Royal was releasing in the near future. It was confirmed around the same time as Strikers. Yet there were people saying Persona 5 would be ported to the Switch just because there was a project codenamed P5S? What did this mean? Are you saying that they would suddenly confirm Persona 5 Royal would be on the PS4 and Switch? Or would P5R be on the PS4 while Vanilla was on the Switch? This just doesn't make sense. Back to the main topic, however. So the game got a bit of hate, but fortunately, something happened. the game got a demo. It was Japan only, but that didn't stop us from trying it out. And surprisingly, a lot of people liked it. Even I did. I was one of the few people out there who tried out this demo, and I gotta say, it was very promising. The game was super fun, it was very entertaining, and the music was great. In any case, this actually got us very excited to see what the game had to offer. So we waited, the game released in Japan, but no worries, it'll soon be ported to the West. All we had to do is wait, so we waited, and waited, and waited. When did this game release again? Oh, right. For obvious reasons, this game took almost a full year until its release. Now, Atlas, I understand this was a very hard time for you, but at the very least you could have actually given us some info. This game had a very rocky start, but soon after it started gaining traction and it looked really promising. So why didn't you take the opportunity to communicate at least some statement regarding its development? Anyhow, we did eventually get the game around February of 2021. Fun fact, this was originally called Persona 5 Scramble, but got changed to Strikers in the West. So, how well does it hold up? Only one way to know for sure. Bunny, you're up now.
Now on to story. It's a simple yet very refreshing take. It's almost a full year since the events of Persona 5. Ren, or the protagonist, decides to revisit our friends for summer vacation. But while he's there, a lot of unusual incidents have happened across the nation. This led to the authorities to begin an investigation, speculating that this might be a plan orchestrated by the Phantom Thieves. Even though we haven't heard of them for about a year, whatever the case, one particular officer, Zenkichi Hasegawa, looks for clues to solve the case. You and your friends just enjoy your vacation together, all until we apparently come back to the metaverse. Yeah, so somehow thanks to this new app called Emma, you can access these new areas within the world called jails. So it's up to you, the Phantom Thieves, this new AI girl named Sophia, to figure out who's behind this new phenomenon and save the nation once again. Okay, can I just say, I am absolutely in love with this story. Heck, I might even go as far as to say it's better than 5's. Not Royals, however, keep that in mind. And there's a handful of reasons, really. If you couldn't tell, this game plays out as a true sequel to the original P5. And this is really cool. One thing I love about this is that it leads to many more interactions between characters. Everyone is already well established and know each other, so you really get to see their personalities bounce off each other and all feel like one big team. As soon as I came back to see the Phantom Thieves happy to see me, telling me what they've been doing all this time, it all feels natural and adds a sense of nostalgia. And you get to see more development on how they've grown. Makoto is now in college and can even drive. Futaba is going to school and more outgoing, and Sojiro is more than happy to see you back. Granted, some of the interactions here aren't the deepest, and the cast doesn't really develop too much here, but it'll quickly be apparent that it's intentional, especially once we get to these two. I'll get to them in a moment, however. So what is this jail concept? How's it all working? Well, you see, this Emma app is essentially an AI who can do about anything for you. But after trying to send a friend request to a specific person, it'll send you to said person's jail. As said, jails play out kind of like the same way as palaces did, with the whole symbolism of the ruler's desires manifested into reality in a literal sense. The twist here is that instead of a jail ruler, or should I say, monarch, yes, they actually call them that and I love it. As I was saying, instead of them having a treasure to steal, they have an army of enemies that take the desires of the general public. That's why, as you'll see in Strikers, the people you have to take down have a very large and loyal following. Like Alice Hiragi, who is an influencer, Ango Natsume, a very popular author, and Mariko Hyoto being a politician. Now, how are these people able to have their own jails? Well, they're just as much of a jerk like the people we fought in P5. It's up for debate who are the better antagonists between P5 and P5S, but I feel like Striker's antagonists feel more like actual people, if that makes any sense. We still have Big Bad CEO number 43 with Akira Konoe, the supposed final boss. But I do think some of the characters here feel more realistic, especially with our current times. Alice is no joke someone who has depression and a low self-esteem, so she ends up beating people physically to feel better about herself, as if she's better than them. This is very real behavior and consequence when someone experiences fame at the same pace that Alice had. It's something many don't like to believe, but it's just the truth, and this fits very well into our everyday culture and how we see these kinds of people. And that's only the first villain of this game. While Maruki will always be my absolute favorite antagonist in the whole series, I've got to give props to Atlas for making such unique directions with this title. That's actually one of my biggest praises towards Strikers, really. But enough about the villains. For now, at least. Let's get into the best additions to Persona 5's narrative, Sophia and Zenkichi. Sophia, as she states, is humanity's companion. She's also an AI. However, unlike Emma, she feels ironically more human. She has her own feelings, she tries to learn about humans, and is immediately established to be a Persona user. Her arc is a very simple one. Machine or AI wanting to become more human. I guess from Persona 3 kind of tried doing something similar, but there's massive differences in why I think Sophia is much better developed than Aigis. You see, Sophia's development isn't focused on just herself as a social link. Rather, it is a focal point to the main story. Understanding Sophia's past is fundamentally tied to everything that happens in Strikers. That alone easily makes her character much stronger and her development much more satisfying. So, to put it simply, Sophia was an AI created by Kuon Ishinose, the same person who created Emma. She created Sophia so she could help people, but after not resulting in how she wanted, she abandoned Sophia and developed Emma instead. Which, later, Emma was sold to Akira Konoe, the CEO of an IT company called Medice, and soon to be our main villain. Throughout the story, however, we get to see not only Sophia grow as more than just an AI, but eventually comes to terms with Ichinose, having the two become close companions. This is such a beautiful story, and you honestly feel for Sophia. There's a scene I skipped over, but basically Ichinose tries to take control of Sophia to hurt the Phantom Thieves, but she refuses, and it leads her to awaken her persona. Odd thing to happen, since she kind of already could control it, but hey, Sumire was able to summon hers even though she already did. What can you do? Now on to Zenkichi. Best character in the entire series! Zenkichi is probably one of the most unique and most complex characters I've gotten to see in a Persona game. Right at the beginning, you get to see that his main goal is to look into the investigation I mentioned earlier. And he does commit to it. He meets who he thinks are the Phantom Thieves and goes along with them to see what they do. He is a police officer, he's not there to mess around, but over time he slowly but surely becomes more involved with the cast, actually believing them in this whole Monarch in jail debacle, getting to know Sophia, and, major spoilers, becoming a Phantom Thief. Oh my gosh, this game is so awesome! And I just want to say, Zenkichi has my favorite Phantom Thief attire. He just looks so cool and is codenamed Wolf, a fun reference when looking at where and who he summons his persona against. Oh, and I might as well also mention how amazing these jails are designed. Most of them take inspiration from traditional fairy tales like Alice in Wonderland, The Ice Queen, Little Red Riding Hood. I don't know what it is, but there's something amazing about how the theming, the subtle references, combined with the fact these rulers are called monarchs, they're straight up taking notes from the Gentleman Thief and making it in your face, and it's just so exciting. Alright, I'm just saying it. I prefer Strikers' jails and symbolism over most palaces and theming done in Persona 5. Fight me, Twitter! I mean, X. I guess I should calm down a bit. Sorry, sir. As I was saying, he grows to eventually love being with the Phantom Thieves and fights along in the remaining bosses. No joke, he goes as far as to sacrifice his own job just to help them out from being captured by the authorities. This is just so cool. He's also really likable. Despite being presented as a bit of a threat at first, he's really funny and just an adult trying to understand the people he's with. He's like a typical dad trying to get along with his son, but translate that into a group of young adults. And don't get me started with the side arc he has with his daughter. So the story between him and her is that Zenkichi basically tries to solve the case to find out who killed his wife, and the interactions we get between the two are really sweet. Zenkichi's daughter is no joke a live streamer who talks about the Phantom Thieves, and heck, we even fight her as her shadow self. We even get to see... Wait, is that Shadow Joker? No way. This game is absolutely amazing! Oh wait, we just have a very small boss fight. Nah, not everything's as perfect as they say. Anyway, we do get to see a lot of cute development between these two, and while it's very similar to the chemistry between Dojima and Nakano from Persona 4, the whole gimmick of Zenkichi's daughter being a fan of us just really felt cute and different enough to feel unique. Now, I know I've been constantly singing praises this whole time, but I promise I do actually have some negatives. My biggest issue just comes down to Konoe and the final boss. For context, Konoe is the CEO of Medice and has that evil CEO trope, which many of you can guess. I despise it. And Konoe is not an exception to the rule. He's fine, I guess. I like the boss fight and the references to him presenting as if he were Steve Jobs, that was kind of neat, but as a whole, he was one of the weakest villains. Oh, and the final boss. You can already guess what happens. We beat Konoe, but then we have to yet again fight a gigantic god who wants to rule over humanity. You know, this was just really stupid. After playing all these games and doing the same ending, I personally wanted Strikers to at least strive to do something new. Maybe Konoe could, I don't know, be the god himself, or summon her persona. Think like in the same vein as Maruki. But that's really my only issue with the story. Everything else is everything I could ask for in a Persona 5 title. It takes well-established and fun characters we grew to love while introducing us to brand new ones with a completely new yet familiar conflict. Now, why don't we get on to the gameplay side of things? Alright, so, as we have said many times, Persona 5 Strikers plays very similarly to many of its contemporaries. You run around dungeons, fighting enemies, collect personas to fuse new ones, gather items, and having to balance it all by living as a high school student. However, as you can tell, there have been an abundance of changes, easily making this the most different game we're reviewing on Personathon. So, first things first, this is a Warriors game, meaning the main thing you'll be doing is fighting hundreds of shadows and demons in the map. I just want to start by saying that narratively and stylistically, this makes so much sense. Think about it. By the end of Persona 5, you just defeated an entire god. It only makes sense you become so powerful that you can now deal with massive waves of enemies. And fighting them is so much fun. You get to do various combos with light and heavy attacks, you can use your gun and even use your persona. So how does it all come together? Well, it's quite simple. As mentioned before, you're able to do many combos with the character you use, but on top of that you have this. By pressing on the right shoulder button, you get to pause the scene to summon your persona and use a spell on them. Granted, this will in fact waste SP. However, if you are skilled enough, you can perform these same actions through a combo. This is a really clever way to increase the skill ceiling. While yes, you can summon a persona the simple way and do more damage, but if you want to do a spell without casting SP and chip damage, you should probably learn to do it through its proper combo. You're able to switch between personas through the menu. Fusing them is pretty much the same as it's always been, so that's good to know. And I have to say that while this is a Warriors-styled game, there's a lot of combos you can do. It's nowhere near as complex or as deep like Bayo or Devil May Cry, but with the addition of this persona summoning mechanic, it does add a lot of diversity to the action. And let me just add that depending on the area you're in, you can actually use your surroundings to attack. For example, yeah, you could just fight off these hordes of enemies yourself, but wouldn't it be cool to jump on a car and blow it up, or cut the cords on these platforms to then perform an all-out attack? Well, you're in luck. This mechanic is so much fun, and it just further shows how powerful and skilled the Phantom Thieves have become. Right, about the all-out attacks. I like to think that there's three kinds here. You have the basic one, which is a very small and fast rush towards a group of enemies. Then we have the bigger version of it. This is reserved for mini or main bosses, but it is super stylish and fun to perform once you've weakened a boss enough. And last but not least, the new Showtime attacks. These are your ultimate move, and you can do them after filling this meter. These are just as flashy and exciting as the ones in P5, but it has that little tint of exhilaration added. Everyone in the cast has one, and they're all amazing to look at. Oh, and that reminds me. No joke, just a few hours in, you'll immediately have access to everyone in the Phantom Thieves and Sophia. This only further incentivizes you to experiment and come up with a good team for the missions. Some do have an issue with this, claiming that it makes it very easy to just make a team and stick with them without changing, but I honestly never felt that. Each character had their own unique strengths and weaknesses, not to mention they all use different elements and spells to further make me want to try them. Morgana is more of a healer and a faster kind of character, while Haru is much slower but can pack a punch with her axe. Not to mention how fun it is switching between characters here, and you can easily stick to Joker as your main player, but it's super cool to go from Joker to then Anne to Yusuke and so on. Graphically, this game is absolutely gorgeous. It's so bright and colorful, and the pre-rendered cutscenes feel so cinematic. In terms of the soundtrack, whew, I gotta say, I will take this over Persona 5's OST any day of the week. Seriously, the tracks here make the action so much more exciting. They took various songs from the original game and remixed them to have more of a punk rock feel. Heck, there's original tracks here that I'd kill to have in Persona 5 Royal. My favorite songs have to be the game's version of Last Surprise, Axe to Grind, Daredevil, Counter-Strike, and so many more. If anyone can make music mods for P5R, please just change the OST to Strikers.
Now this is cool and all, but what about outside the combat? Well, when exploring these jails, the game has a massive emphasis on platforming, using the environment to run around, jump on buildings, and even some fun 2D sections. There's a lot of items to collect and countless encounters you can do to grind. And why not get into these jails actually? We mentioned them before, but I cannot get over how clever they designed the jails. Most of them, at least the first 3, heavily lean towards a castle setting, but we do get to see other places like a lab and a Japanese garden, and not just aesthetically but also gameplay wise. Now let's take a look outside these jails. Persona 5 Strikers is overall much more linear. There's no social links, rather a handful of boosts you can upgrade as you progress through the story. Some say this is a major downgrade, but for the kind of game that Strikers is trying to be, I really don't mind it. It makes the pace much faster and more relaxing really. Strikers doesn't really have a calendar system. Okay, well it technically does, but not in the traditional sense. It's very dependent on story progression. On top of that, you can always visit jails right after you defeat the monarch. This is kinda weird narratively, but when you think about it, I can kinda see why they did this. Jails aren't really a palace. It's not a manifestation of a villain's desires, rather the desires of the people manifested to an area. Okay, maybe that sounds a little more confusing, but you get what I mean, they're different. Plus, look on the bright side, you get to fight the bosses again if you want. The bosses themselves are super cool. You have more references to the theming of the jails, and I have to say, hearing Counter-Strike while I was fighting Konoe in his second phase made me feel like such a badass. Especially now with my boy Senkichi. Man, we need more people like him.
And yeah, that's kind of it for the gameplay. It's a very radically different title. It's no longer turn-based, just fun and exciting action as you take down massive waves of shadows. No better way to continue the legacy of the Phantom Thieves.
With all that said, you may think that this game has been off the charts for everyone else as much as it was for us. And surprisingly, it kind of did. Let me explain. So let's start off with the sales. I am happy to say that Strikers managed to sell 1.5 million copies as of June of 2021. Oh wait, what's this? Scratch that, Strikers has sold officially over 2 million copies as of recording this production. The fact that this game started off with one of the worst first impressions to suddenly be one of the most successful entries in the Persona 5 brand is wild to me. Critically, however, it did alright. Many did praise for the story and gameplay. However, as time went on, I've been noticing a few people in the community saying it's not that good. Am I overpraising this game too much? Maybe, but I just can't stop loving this game. I sadly don't think there's ever going to be a remake or definitive version like how they did with Persona 4 Arena, a very similar game in what it tries to do, but we can only wish.
Well, that's actually it. We finished Personathon. It's hard to believe just how far we've come with this series and our productions. Never did I think I would be back here for you all. Doing this series was a very fun experience. I had so much fun having to finally talk about what is a franchise that means a lot to me. If I had to say one last thing before we truly say goodbye, it's thank you. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for sticking with us. From when I first became a host to where you see me now. From the bottom of my heart, this is one, if not the most ambitious project I've ever gotten the chance to be in. It may have taken us this long, but it warms my heart having your support. Oh my gosh, I said I wasn't going to do this without crying. Sorry, just got a bit too emotional. Now then, let's answer the big question. Should you play any of these games? Absolutely, especially Strikers, like come on. If this production didn't convince you, I don't know what will. In all seriousness, however, each and every one of them has something special, and I strongly recommend playing every one of them. Each have a great narrative, tone, style, and so many other things that make them stand out from each other. It doesn't matter what your first Persona game is, and I think that's what makes this series so fun to get into. Having to go through every title, sharing my thoughts, wearing this outfit, have all been brand new experiences for both me and new ideas we've never tackled before. If you ever want to see something like this again, be sure to press that red button. Here's my final ranking on each one, least to most favorite. Now if you'll excuse me, I will get to work on changing the hearts of those adults who underestimated us. And as always, this is a karaoke from Mintjoy Pictures.
We got some exciting yet very unexpected news regarding the capitalist empires. Mintjoy's former, or should I say current host, Akari Aoi is back! We have the CEO of the company, Minty Leifson, to answer some questions. So, tell us, Mr. Leifson, What made you accept Miss Aoi back into your operations?
Well, there's not much I can comment on that. It was just a matter of settling our differences. Though, if I had to be honest, there was one person who helped me, what it means to be here, and how I should treat her, not only as a worker, but someone who I can care for. So, if that person is hearing this, thank you. I hope to see you again soon. Hey Miss Aoi, close your eyes really quick and show your hand.
Alright. What are you hiding this time?
It's not much, but it should be enough to compensate for the raise. I've also donated to everyone my dad owed. I'm still very sorry for what happened.
Sir, I can't accept it. You made this after all.
We made this. We may not be the old Mintjoy I wanted, but we can certainly be our own.
My name is Akari Aoi, the host for Mintjoy Pictures, a company dedicated to making productions of some of my favorite games of all time. Never would I have thought that I'd end up being in this kind of position, and there's nothing in the world that can make me want to change it. My parents may not be here to see me, and things might get rough around here sometimes, but I'm sure they're happy to see the person I've become. This is Akari Aoi from Mintjoy Pictures.
Every day, ordinary days, at the door, don't leave them here. Let us hard fingers at a condo, never arrive, still down to the fear. Sunshine, never arrive, someone special. Look how far come from the bones that I made. You watch the sun. Nothing matters more than love. Nothing matters more than trust. Sometimes only days give that chance that comes back for your heart to break. There's no sun like the light, like a bottle light inside. To make me
Hmm.